CoCoTALK is an unscripted live broadcast. Anything can and will happen. The views and opinions expressed by members of the panel and the live audience are their own and not necessarily those of the CoCoTALK show, its sponsors, affiliates, or subsidiaries. Open minds encouraged, sense of humor recommended. If any off-color comments were made, we're sorry.
Hi, this is Dale Lear, designer of TRS-80 Color Baseball, and you're listening to CoCoTALK.
This is CoCoTALK, the world's leading live talk show featuring the Tandy Color computer. It's time to drop your socks and grab your real-time clocks, and let's rock.
CoCoTALK is rocking the 8-bit world, keeping the Tandy flame alive. We may be mocked, but we'll never stop, 'cause CoCoTALK is rocking the 8-bit world. CoCoTALK is rocking the 8-bit world, keeping the Tandy flame alive. We may be mocked, but we'll never stop, 'cause CoCoTALK is rocking the 8-bit
world. I don't know if we're going to be a dumpster fire today. We're sure not going to try. Welcome to CoCoTALK. My name is Steve Bjork. I've kind of been associated with the CoCo world now for almost 40 years. Oh, it's getting that old. Anyways, Curtis is also going to be joining me. We're co-hosting today while Stevie is out in Georgia. And
here at the moment.
Yeah, he's here with us. Well, at least in spirit at some point. But anyways, Curtis, why don't you go around and introduce our fine panel?
Okay, I guess we'll just go across, hopefully not too many people bounce in and out of here while I'm doing it. From Australia, who's hasn't been on too much lately, but hopefully will be a lot more in the near future, is David O'Connor. How are you doing?
Pretty good this week, Curtis. It's good to be back again.
Cool. Next to him is Rick Adams. I believe you're sporting a new mic today too, aren't you?
Yeah. And I'm surviving mowing my 6-inch tall back lawn.
Love the yard work.
Yeah, you get a lot of sun up there in Minnesota during this time of the year.
It's weak, but it's there.
And of course, there's me and Steve. We'll skip over those people because we already introduced ourselves. On the next row on our panel of squares, that almost has a double meaning, is Nick Marotta. How are you doing?
Good morning, afternoon, night, everybody. I don't want to be an East Coast snob, so I will make sure everybody's covered. Doing well. Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
Cool. Next to him is our resident Apple guy, Mark Overholzer. How are you doing, Mark?
Thank you.
And then next to him is somebody we haven't actually seen in a while. I think he's been busy moving or something like that. And
that's right.
Doing job stuff. Mr. Rob Inman. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Curtis. I'd like to just say OS 9 forever.
Of course. Of course.
Yeah.
Are you going to say RSB forever yet, or?
RSB forever, yes.
Yeah. I was only going to say back in the day when we first got OS 9, it was OS 9 forever. That's how long it took for it to boot.
Yeah. Floppy drive. That's pretty accurate.
Ouch. That hurts. That hurts because it's true.
I'm just glad they didn't bring out the cassette version. Next to him is one of our fellow Canucks, Mr. D. Bruce Moore. How are you doing, Bruce?
Doing great, thanks.
How's the book sales doing?
I haven't checked lately, but System Hacked is now available You get it at systemhacked.gracenote.ca.
Cool.
As long as no one hacks the website.
Oh yeah, there's always a danger.
I
isn't there?
haven't read my copy yet. I need to do that.
Oh, right on. Thank
And
you.
next to that is an almost
too kind.
snoozing Stevie Strobridge, hiding out in
Hello,
Georgia
hello.
after a good plate full of grits, which is probably why he's nodding off at the moment. How are you doing,
Oh,
Steve?
yeah. Food coma is kicking in. Good to be here.
Way to bring the energy up on this show. And people have moved around to me here. So there's Mark again. Mr. Grant Leedy, who's got a Garfield icon for some reason, which I'll have to ask exactly what that's about.
Lasagna? Exactly. My favorite cartoon character from my youth is Garfield.
Oh, so we're talking like ages ago.
Hey, I'm not that old. I'm probably younger than everybody else in this panel.
Like we're talking so last century.
Last millennium.
Yeah, that's exactly true.
What computer are we here for again?
ENIAC.
Yeah, no kidding.
And next after that is the most positive guy I know. He's always got a positive thing to say about everything and anybody. Mr. Nick Marentes.
Good day, everyone. And yeah, the biggest square of the lot here is here.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And after that is Mr. Plastic Dumpster Fire himself, Richard Lubieski of Boysen Tech. How are you doing, Richard?
Well, I was doing okay until Steve York referred to us as a distinguished fine panel. I feel insulted.
Yeah, I just want to point out of the 12 panelists here, almost half of them are not in the United States. I think they're five out of 12, right? So we have a real international
pretty
flavor.
international panel today.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And Curtis, don't forget somebody who's not in the squares, but he's the bottom square.
Yeah, I think he's waving or something. It's
There we go.
He's trying to get out.
How are you doing, Mark? We're gonna keep you busy today, I bet too.
Tech team never gets respect.
Yeah, we
have
Mark to thank.
You only notice you when it
Mark
goes
to
wrong,
thank
yeah.
Or to blame for today's show.
Yeah.
Well,
And I think
Curtis,
that's everybody.
Yep.
Mark D. Overholzer, yes.
Yep,
Yes.
we did.
Yep.
It's just that
Give me a
the
thumbs up.
squares move around when you switch between your video and being on and off.
Yeah.
It likes to move them. In addition to people jumping in. Anyways, does anybody have any interesting little that's on the panel stories or small news bites? You know, something that takes about a minute or two that they'd like to throw out now.
I got one really, really small one. I discovered a bug in the OS9 dysasm long time ago, but I've been busy with work. But I actually had, I think on Wednesday or Thursday, about a 5-minute break where I was waiting for several jobs to get answers from clients. So I actually had nothing to do for a brief bit of time. And I actually fixed the bug. I sent it to David Ladd to submit to the repository. It'll also be on the next ease of use beta 5. It was a bug basically when you're pushing and pulling on the U stack, it was erroneously putting the U register as one of the registers pulling it. You can't push or pull a register onto itself. So it had kind of swapped. It was supposed to be doing S in that case. I just fixed it.
Right.
So look for that coming up soon on the repository or on the next ease of use. So the next ease of use is going to be a ways off yet.
It just shows you that, you know, there's problems in all software. It's just sometimes it takes, 30 years to fix it.
Yeah, I have to go back to the original version that I did back in 1993 because I don't remember having that bug, and I had disassembled the same program way back then that I originally found it in. So I think when people started adding new features, I think it kind of crept in, but I could be wrong. Maybe it was screwed up in the first place. But yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
We've been finding bugs in Nitrous 9 here the last little while that have been sitting there for 2 decades.
Mm-hmm.
I fixed a bug this year that was in Temple of ROM in the cartridge version, and I finally I could never fix it while it was under development, and I finally found it and fixed it this year, so I felt all good about that. But real minor bug, but it was driving the driving me crazy.
Yeah, so the next time you're complaining about Microsoft not fixing bugs, just remember it takes us up to 30 years to get our shit straight.
I'll still complain about Microsoft. Sorry, that's just tradition.
What was the bug, Rick?
When it would draw the maze on the screen, you'll see this if you have the cartridge version. Vertical lines would get clipped at the bottom of the screen 1 pixel too early, so there was like a little gap between where it would stop drawing the line and the bottom of the screen.
It's kind of like the gimme on the 200 line mode.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
It's a really good point.
Yeah.
Is the bug fix Temple of ROM available somewhere? I know that's a loaded question.
It actually
copyright.
Isn't. Right.
Should it?
Well, actually, the in my contract, it turns out that after a couple of years, the rights to reverted back to me, so I could, sell Temple of ROM right now, or give it away or whatever, with the bug fix. So yeah, but I haven't really done anything about that. So it's such a minor bug, but I'll think about it.
I bet there would be a market, Rick, for a enhanced version of Temple of ROM. A few more little tweaks and all that sort of thing.
Now with 1 extra scan line. Yeah.
Well, maybe a little more than that, but yeah, I bet you that would get people's attention.
New
Just a
version
thought.
number.
Oh yeah,
that would be nice.
Hey,
I
in
smell
a real-time clock. We need a real-time clock in
it. You could do CoCo 3 enhanced colors like we've been doing some of the other games too.
Ooh, yeah, something. Yeah, that's really cool.
Yes.
CoCo VJ for that matter.
I actually, yeah. Well, I also have put in some changes for the CoCo 3 to make the colors better on RGB monitors. But I know that I have very grandiosely said that Temple of ROM 2 is coming. Well, not much has been done about that. My life has been kind of interesting lately, and I haven't really gotten to that. But I'm kind of hoping someday that will happen.
Well, how about 1.1 in the meantime?
Right. Well, sure. Yeah. No,
yeah.
That's not a bad idea.
Hey,
better colors and an extra scan line. How much?
Since we don't have Brother Jeremy. Yeah. We can get Bruce to play a song since we don't have Brother Jeremy. Just let 1.1 free. So
yeah, there you go. Just port 1.1 over to OS 9. And then you can sell that.
Well, getting back on topic, but one thing I did want to interject here.
This is answer your 45-minute estimate before.
Mark, did you bring sandwiches for everybody?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I posted them in the chat.
Oh, okay.
Email them.
It's pickup only, unfortunately, and it's quite a drive. So
yeah, well, at least these sandwiches don't have much in the way of calories. Not much in anything else, but you get
quite
at least
a drive. It's a huge swim for us.
Yeah. Anybody else has some interesting little
We're off.
It was Nick Morona trying to phone you.
Yeah.
Well, the engineer seems to be working again.
Yeah,
Are we
okay.
streaming still, or the stream stop?
Oh wow.
Yeah, you're back.
But do we have to restart YouTube or?
No, YouTube's up.
No, we got CoCoTALK in the panel display there too now.
Yep. Since if you want, I can do the chat while we're getting reset up there. Everything is live. I'd like to thank Mark B, of course, is in the chat. Explore VR, Ben Drake. Paul Fiscarelli says, "Yo, how you doing?" Jim Gary's asking where the beer. Well, Stevie promised beer, I think. And then Jim Gary is encouraging my OS 9 comments by saying "Woot OS 9" and more OS 9.
I'm sure Nick Moretti's put him up to that, but yeah.
Okay.
John Laurie says, "Hey guys, Chad Edward, how you doing?"
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the people out there. Thanks for joining.
Well, Well, every week I'm still hoping, I'm still praying, but it's never happened yet. But I'm just waiting for someone with talent to show up on this show.
And
Why start now?
that's our troll.
One of them. But he's not as good as troll as Jim Brain.
Anyways, well, if nobody else has any quick little bits or on the panel.
Yeah, I do. I do actually. I was
okay.
just
All right,
before everything froze on us. It hasn't actually arrived yet, but a little bit of news that most people might have heard about is Ed Snyder has finally got his CoCo 3 keyboards, custom keyboards, clicky keyboards, up and running, and I've got a custom one on its way that he's made specifically for me with a custom color scheme. So hopefully within maybe next week or the week after, I might have that here and be able to show it on the show. But that's pretty exciting because Ed's done some fantastic stuff for the community.
Yep, it's actually in the news too. So I'll have a picture of one of the keyboard samples there.
So are your keys upside down?
Yeah, the arrow keys are upside down. No, mine's going to have white main keys with dark grey shift and clear and enter. And I suggested to Ed, he was going to make the blue keys for the arrows, and I really like that. But I said, why don't we put light grey keys for the arrow keys? So you might actually see that, Curtis. There might be a photo of the white keys, dark grey with light grey arrows, and that's the one that he custom designed on my recommendation for my CoCo 3. So I'm pretty excited to get that here.
Did he have a price for that?
I haven't got an exact price, but I think with postage, it's probably going to be somewhere around 200 Australian dollars. That's including postage here or something. So could be give or take a bit, but I'll let everybody know.
Yeah.
I believe he was. I think it was 120, if I'm not mistaken.
120 US.
120. Yeah. So by the time it goes to Australian and with postage, it works out to around 200. With our crappy exchange rate.
Yeah, I know what you mean. We have the same issue.
If nobody else has got any particular little topics from the panel, why don't we have Curtis do the news?
Yep, there's not a lot this week, but I'll just do a couple. First one up is the one actually that we were just talking about. So let me get my sharing. Oh. That's okay. There's not much news this week anyway, so.
We're live. This is live, unscripted.
Hey, are you guys seeing that?
Yep.
Yes.
There we go.
Speaking of Ed Snyder's keyboards, he did start shipping them, I think, literally within hours after last week's show. But several have already been shipped. Carl von Winkle here is one that mentioned it, and then David, you've obviously got yours, and I think there's a few others that have gone out in order too. So is this the standard color scheme that he's doing then, or is this?
Yeah, I think that's the normal color scheme with the light grey keys, or brown or light grey. I'm not sure. It depends on the color balance of the camera. But,
okay. And then the white for the special function, enter, clear, shift, alt, control stuff.
Yeah.
And I know he was having problems laser etching the red, and then I think he found an alternative red that's a bit easier to laser etch because he actually didn't have any text under like the word break or escape like the original.
Yeah, he came up with a slightly lighter color, a lighter color red, and it worked fine.
Yeah,
I do like the connector he's using. A lot better than the Mylar.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
Now,
if you scroll down a little bit further there, Curtis, there should be a picture of the light grey ones with the dark. The white keys with the dark.
Okay, so not this one.
That's the standard color scheme. That's the original one he was doing with the darker red non-marked one and the non-marked arrow keys.
Yeah, I'm not sure why he did the unmarked arrow keys because the white etch is fine.
Yeah.
The red, I know he was having problems because it wasn't showing up. And here's a little picture of it showing the interior and how
Yep.
the key switches work.
Key switches. Yeah.
Oh,
That's a lot better than the old
yeah.
Wow.
one.
Yeah, absolutely. Nice, good quality
That's
clicky
pretty.
keys.
Now I'm just waiting for his LED version where each one lights up different colors and stuff there.
Oh yeah, RGB.
Definitely need it for a color computer.
Yeah.
Yep.
The keyboard will be, the cost of about 5 color computers at that point, but
Yeah, you'll have a computer just for the keyboard to run the lights.
and that's just the same one again, I think.
That's the standard one. Yeah. Oh no, that's an inverted version of the standard one.
Arrow keys.
Yeah.
Oh right, yeah, all white and then the gray for the special, yeah.
Yeah.
But
So what's so good about this keyboard? What's the big deal anyway?
It's all
It's a
mechanical.
real, it's a real mechanical switch keyboard.
Yeah.
Doesn't use the old Mylar connections.
Yep.
Yeah, the Mylar tended to fail, and unfortunately, if you have to get one of those special ink pins to fix it, and most of the time it didn't work. So if your keyboard went out, it was almost like you're out of luck.
But when we say Mylar, there's actually Mylar sheet beneath all the keys, and then it goes up to the Mylar connector, the motherboard stuff. Yeah, if anywhere it fails, the Mylar it doesn't work anymore.
Right. Okay.
Also, typing on them is much more enjoyable. It's like a real keyboard opposed to that weird hit that you get with the Mylar.
Yep.
This one here looks like a CoCo 3 keyboard. Is this CoCo 3 only?
No, a CoCo 3 keyboard works fine on a CoCo 1 and 2, even as it is now, even the standard Radio Shack one. That's why everybody was selling those keyboards.
Didn't he mention something he's trying to get to work on a CoCo 2? There's an issue or something?
Well,
as far as mounting.
Yeah, it's the mounts on the side. He's saying he's working on the 1 and 2 models now.
Yeah, because he's got those little plastic things that you put in to mount it, because it needs a nice solid base to sit on. It can't just kind of float around. So he was doing the modifications for the CoCo 2. Plus, I think he had to do the different connector in the earlier CoCo 1s, where it wasn't just the straight ribbon Mylar plugging in. It actually had that little header connector.
Right. This one here that we're seeing right now, that's my second favorite one. That's the one with the blue arrow keys. I was kind of thinking I really like the blue, but I was kind of sort of thinking it sort of looks a little bit Toys R Us, a little bit sort of thing. I didn't know whether it sort of looked a little bit sort of not sort of professional. I mean, I know they're color computers and they're not aimed at the professional market, but still. So I thought maybe what if we put light grey keys where the blue arrow keys are, and Ed tried one out, and I think it looks really good. I think
and I think if I remember Ed mentioning it, I think the keys, most of them, like the different colors, are all the same price, so it doesn't change the cost of the device. And since he's etching all the tops, he doesn't have to worry about anything specific.
Yeah, I couldn't actually decide between the blue and the light grey. I think I do prefer the light grey, so Ed's actually shipping mine with a key puller tool and some blue keys as well, so I can swap them over if I want.
Yeah, I think I'll probably order this one, though I'll get the darker red or lighter red or whatever the different shade of red is, so that you can etch the break and escape.
Yeah, same thing. Yep.
Yeah, definitely the bottom line with this keyboard. If you have to type on it, or you're especially coding, or you just like playing games with your keyboard, this is what you want.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I agree.
David's case, he doesn't have a keyboard for his one CoCo. I mean, there's nothing.
Yeah, he doesn't have the extra keys right now. He's using
the whole thing.
Yeah. I'm actually using the. There they are. Yep. The bottom one in these two pictures here, that's the the color scheme I'm going with, except with the lighter break key with etched on it, with break etched on it, or escape etching on it.
But the nice thing is, though, is because of the way he orders these keys, they're just generic keys, right? With a couple of slightly different sizes, like the space bar and the enter key and shift and stuff.
No,
but
they're the same
you
keys.
can customize it for almost no extra cost. Like you can pick whatever the heck colors you want. You can even change the etching, I guess, technically, if you wanted to. Add characters or whatever on there, or a different font for the characters.
Yeah, well, he etched a stop sign on one of them, and he etched the Cylon on on another one of his break keys, which is kind of appropriate. So,
I mean, if you have one game that's keyboard operated that you play all the darn time, you could even get a custom keyboard just for it.
Yeah,
assuming you're rich and have money to burn, but
yeah.
Well, the other advantage of this keyboard, this particular keyboard, is since these are mechanical switches, if one of them goes out, it's very easy to fix.
Yep.
So it can be easily replaced. So unlike the Mylar, which could affect several keys or just the entire keyboard. And these things are fairly common. So it's an easy fix.
On that note, I wonder if Ed would be willing to have an option to ship several extra mechanical keys so that if you have to fix it later, you can with the exact type, because these mechanical keys, there's all sorts of different feelings where it's a sharp feeling where it goes down and it's not. So all of a sudden, if you have to go out and replace a key and it's a totally different type, you're going to be typing away. You go, every time you hit that T key, you go, why does it feel so different?
Yeah, you're talking about the key switch itself, though, right?
Right, the physical key switch.
Yeah.
Not the
the
thing that you touch, but I'm talking, the actual switch.
The other thing I like about these keyboards too is that the actual connections underneath, if you turn the keyboard upside down, you can actually easily get to the switch contacts on the other side of it. And I asked Ed about this, whether it'd be safe to solder wires onto them. He said, yeah, no problem. So I'm actually going to modify mine and add some connectors on it for some custom programs I'm going to be making for the modular synth, and use those as inputs from my synthesizer, so I can trigger things. Like I might in one of my programs, I might have something where it recognizes the S key for a step for the sequencer or something like that.
Maybe you could make a numeric keypad too. That'd be cool.
Yeah, well, yeah, but no reason why not.
Fitting it in the case might be a bit difficult, but
yeah, we'd have to put it beside it or something.
Yeah, because we've been talking, like Nick and I have been talking about that too, about the fact that some of the old CoCo 1 and 2 games were really designed to have your left and right arrows on the right side and your up and down arrows on the left side. It was much easier to play two games than this little diamond thing. And it'd be nice to have a keyboard that has both versions and they're just wired to the same wire, so that you can have your alternate keys, or you can use the diamond shape, either or.
Yeah. I'm really used to from my CoCo 1 days, having the up and down arrows on the left and the left and right ones on the right side. So
it would be a bit difficult, I would think. There are some gaps, though. I mean, you could maybe put stuff by the space bar, like as long as they're far left, and then for that point, if they were a little bit lower on the key area, then I would be fine with it. Yeah, something like that. I'm sure there's something that we could do that would be a little bit more. Like a keypad, you'd have to cut the case though to get that to fit. That's why I think we all sold it separate.
He could have like a spot on the keyboard where you plug in the connection, the alternate keyboard, and then just have the cable come out of the case and go to a separate boxed keyboard.
Yeah, Steve, I'm trying to remember the HGL. They had a numeric keypad that they sold third party along with their HGL 57 keyboard. Do you remember, did that plug into the keyboard itself, or does that come out of the cartridge port? I can't remember. You remember, Steve Bjork?
Yeah, I'm thinking, and I can't. I do remember somebody had a design where you had to modify the case to bring the cable out.
Okay.
So that you could.
I remember trying it at a fest, and it was really nice. It was like real key switches like this is too, but I can't remember if it plugged in the cartridge port or not.
Yeah.
I
just remember it was something that came on the market. I never saw it sold.
No, I saw it actually at the fest. I did.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I saw it at a fest, but I never saw an ad for it again.
Oh, okay. And here's the connector, which is actually a solid piece, not just the plastic.
Oh, that is nice.
Yeah.
I totally hate the Mylar.
Yep.
I get nervous and sweat every time I got to put that thing in.
Yeah.
You figure you might just slip and like bend it and snap the end off or break a wire.
Well, you got to remember this thing is almost as thin as that Mylar. This is actually a printed circuit board.
Yep.
It's still got to be better.
Yeah.
Probably way better than
I sweat bullets every time I got to insert that thing.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful keyboard, and the fact that you can customize the colors, you can get customized keys if you want. I mean, this is just a beautiful product. I think it's worth the extra cost.
Yeah, one of my projects coming up, I've talked about a few shows back, was I've got a Model 4 case here, and I've got 3 CoCo 1s here at the moment, and one of them I'm going to graft into the Model 4 case. And when I do that, that'd be an ideal opportunity to order a custom keyboard from Ed and see if he could design a numeric one to go in there, because there's a spot in the Model 4 case for a numeric keypad.
Yeah, and I do remember, I think it was it 80 Micro or 80 US Journal or something like that, that actually did have a hack mod where people took a Model 3 keyboard, because it was earlier than the Model 4, and they actually gave you the exact measurements to cut the CoCo 1 case apart to get it to fit. It barely did, but I mean, it actually had the numeric keypad and the extra keys too. So it has been done before, but as a complete hack job.
Well, if people want more information on it, there's information in the Facebook page. Also, you can go to Ed's website. That was
Zipsterzone.com, I think.
What was it again?
Zipsterzone.com, is that his?
I'll post it in the chat.
Okay.
Okay, cool.
Right.
I haven't checked to see if he has yet, but I know he's sold a few already. So, and there's a pretty long waiting list.
Yeah, and it's just that he's got a lot of other great products. If he keeps coming out with products like this, he's going to have a wait list on everything. He's just not going to have time to get everything done.
Yeah, he's going to have to start enlisting, some help on manufacturing. He can order all the parts and make the boards and stuff, but get somebody else to do the putting all the key switches and the keys in and stuff.
Yeah,
cheap Canadian labor.
And this is pretty. If you remember from a few episodes ago, where we showed how the laser etching works, where he has to move the keyboard for each row and adjust it exactly right so it burns centered in, because there's nothing to automatically forward it, and there's different heights you got to burn at, and because the keys are sculpted to slope down as you go down the keyboard, you have to keep adjusting the height too to get it to properly burn the etching on it too. So it's labor intensive.
It's a really amazing price, really, when you consider the work that goes into it and what he's done. It's not expensive at all for what he's done.
He's pretty well doing his labor for free, as far as I can tell. It's kind of like a
Thank you, Ed. Okay. Well, I think we beat this one to death. What's our next news item?
This is not so much news. It was a magazine I've never heard of before. I've never seen it before. Now, I think Nick Marentes, you said you actually have some of these Computronics. I don't know if Nick Marentes is
here. I think I do. I have to go through all my magazine archives, but I do recognize it. Yeah.
So is anybody else, like Steve Bjork or some of the other people here, that you've seen this one before? From what I understand, though, it eventually changed its name to something else within a year or two after it started publishing. And it covered all the tier cities, including the CoCo, as you see.
Morning, guys.
What was that?
Hey, Chad.
Good morning.
Chad just joined. Hey, Chad. How you doing?
Hey.
I did flip through a few of these.
I got booted.
What's that?
I joined via Facebook, but I got booted, so I came on via Zoom.
Okay.
Computronics was actually an Australian electronics company based out of Western Australia. They eventually went bust, and I actually worked for basically the Phoenix company that rose out of the ashes here in Brisbane, called LED Signs Australia. They actually used to manufacture a whole heap of electronic stuff, a lot of grid matrices for your LED displays. I worked for them here in their Brisbane depot. One of my friends was the manager there for a year and a half prior to my current job. And
so was this an Australian magazine then, or?
Computronics was actually an Australian company, and they manufactured massive LED signs and LED displays, and they specialized in scoreboards.
Okay, because I noticed the pricing on the top that mentions the US and the UK. There's nothing about Australia. So is it, I just want to make sure this is the same company we're talking about?
They might have been a subsidiary of a UK company. I'm not sure of the full details there, but I remember Computronics was actually advertised heavily in Electronics Australia magazine and Silicon Chip magazine over here, and they went bust easily 10 years ago.
Actually, now that you mention it, I do remember that, because I was right into Electronics Australia big time. I've got probably 2 or 3 decades worth of Electronics Australia magazines in my shelves. I do remember that being in there. Yeah, now that you mention it.
They could be affiliated somehow.
Yeah, because they're mentioning in the lower left corner, like, any Computronics in New York. So I'm just wondering if that's the same company, or if it was an international company that was all over the place, or
it might have just had, like, Australia's got Hungry Jack's as opposed to Burger King, but it's still essentially the same thing. So
okay, yeah, like I said, I'd never heard of it, but I do, though. They said that merged with what is it? I think Greg Cronin said. HLX Computronics magazine ended when it was merged into Basic Computing magazine, which was formerly 80 US Microjournal. That one I do remember, beginning with September 1983 issue. So that was part of that whole collapse. The video game crash also caused a lot of magazines to end or merge. whatever that same time period.
Well, you can flip through.
Also remember that when it comes to trademarks, you trademark the name, not just the name, but also in a particular industry. So you can
And
have
different
two
countries.
companies using the same trademark, but they can be totally separate.
Yeah. And you also you have to register in each country too. So I mean, you may have something totally different companies.
The perfect example of that is Moog, M-O-O-G, Moog synthesizers, and there's also a Moog automotive company as well, and they're both American.
Yeah.
So yeah, totally different industries, but same name.
Well, there's not much CoCo stuff in there, I'll tell you. There's you can flip through the issues on the Internet Archive, and I went through two of those issues, and there was almost no CoCo stuff. So that one cover might be a rare feature article.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have to admit, when it came to U.S. stuff, I never really heard of the magazine. It's something that may have came and gone. But back in those days, I was mostly concentrated on CoCo and general computer hardware.
Yeah.
So it's just
like I remember 80 Micro used to cover the CoCo. They had CoCo sections and stuff in the early 80s, and then they spun off Hot CoCo, and then I think it merged back before they both folded.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, next up, we were getting all those AGD game packs from the students in Scotland. We had 4 packs that came in, and they still want feedback. If any of you guys have had a chance to try the games and stuff, either on the archive or on the CoCo list, etc., just to give these 10 and 11-year-old students, some feedback, what you thought of their games, etc., which is a really cool idea. But I know Art Flexer and a few others were asking, like, what exactly does AGD code and stuff look like? Like, what exactly is it? And Per Surratt is actually posted here. Basically, the way it works on the CoCo is that he has a C program he wrote that basically decompiles the compiled Spectrum version, and then creates the pseudo language that is based that the original Spectrum games are written in, which controls the sprites, etc. So he's got a posting here that actually has sample code that they've disassembled or decompiled from the I think 4 game samples that he did here. I'm not going to show you all that stuff. If you guys are interested in that, you guys can grab it, and I'll send the links up so we can post them on the show notes on YouTube, etc. But just to let you know that there is some sample code if people are wondering how those games are written on the Spectrum. As far as I know, there is no native compiler for the CoCo to do it on a CoCo itself. Hey, Simon Jonason posted a 4-voice sound thing where he's using some tables and wave tables and stuff to give it a slightly smoother sound, because Eric Avila kind of criticized it when he did the original 3-voice demo. Eric,
not unlike Eric.
Yeah, Simon worded it as here that Eric said it sounded like a flock of angry robots. He actually said something much worse than that, but I'm not going to repeat it. But I think I've got audio. I won't play the whole thing, but we'll just play a little bit here. Can you guys hear that? Yeah. Is it too loud? Should I drop it down a bit? It does sound smoother to me than the original, so it takes more CPU.
Yeah, I played this on my system, and I got it to sound a lot better. Yeah, this audio.
Oh, okay. Like the actual code, you mean?
Oh, no. What I'm just saying is, opposed to the way I'm hearing my headphones right now.
Oh, okay.
The way that people are hearing it. It does sound. Definitely go on Facebook, play it yourself on a good sound system, and you'll hear it a lot better.
Anyway, like I said, I'm not going to play the whole thing. You just go on Facebook.
So what can you do with 50% of the CPU being free, Steve? Can you still do some games and have this playing in the background?
Well, the games will be running 50% slower, but if you're you're not tasking the system that much, it does work. But you also have to watch your regular vertical interrupts don't get too long, because that could distort the audio too. These, as I said, he's a good demo writer and like that, but still, I would like to see him actually implement this technology in a full-fledged game.
Yeah, I have a feeling him and Paul Thayer are working together on that, so we might actually see something on that.
I'm looking forward to seeing it.
Yeah, And I can give some examples that actually do run something like this. Contras runs 2-voice digital sound in the background. Photon runs multi-voice music in the background. Contra's using hardware scrolling, so it's not as CPU intensive because the scrolling's being done on the hardware. Photon, you're just moving shapes on a static screen.
Yeah, Photon, there's a lot of waiting for the user to do something. There should be lots of overhead to do good music.
Yeah. I mean, later levels on Photon, there's literally about 30 sprites also running around too, but it's a very well written game. Grabber, even on the CoCo 1 and 2, was playing 2-voice music but there's not much moving. There's a static 2 mazes, and then you've got 4 monster shapes, a couple blinking bits in your player. There's only like basically 6 or 7 things moving on the screen at once.
Yeah, one of the issues when you sit there and you're talking about a game where you say you don't have a lot going on, but all of a sudden you've got a lot going on all of a sudden, and then you don't. It's during that time that when a lot's going on, that's really working against your sound system. And at least you still got 50% of your CPU to get that a lot done. So
you can look at it another way too. I mean, considering that the CoCo 3 runs at full double speed all the time, well, if you're using 50% of the time on a CoCo 3, you could run a CoCo 1-2 game basically at full speed at the same time. So you'd use the graphics down to P mode 3 or 4 or whatever, and you can change the palettes to make it look a bit fancier, but you could do something like that.
Yeah, but when you start going into like 16-color mode, you need that speed of the CPU to offset that extra memory work.
Yeah, it'd be better for strategy type games. Like I think Roger Taylor did background music like this in Jeweled, but it's a fairly simple game.
Puzzle
game. Yeah.
And the other thing too is that when you're doing music for like a title screen, you can forgive some issues that might be in the music. But if the music is playing constantly, you really got to have that music pleasant, or else the person's going to go nuts.
They're just going to hit that S key to shut it off.
Exactly.
Predator.
Yeah.
In this demo, so I just want to say in this demo here, Simon talks about, I think he says one voice is using the sawtooth wave and the rest are using wavetables. When I listened to it, there's a lot of really smooth tones there. I think it's the lowest line that's got the sawtooth wave. And for some reason through Zoom, that's the one that seems to be dominating. So it does actually sound a lot smoother when the voices are more in balance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And as I said, when you listen to it on Facebook, it'll sound better than what you're hearing in this video.
I think Paul Piscarelli is commenting on this, saying something's coming soon in this regard. And he also posted a YouTube video. So I'm wondering if we should take a look at that. It sounds like it's something related to sound.
Where did he post it?
He posted it in the YouTube chat.
Just while we're still on Simon's demo, one thing that impressed me about it was, and I made a comment on that Facebook thing about the SID chip in the Commodore 64. Everyone's saying how wonderful, and it was a fun chip. But I think Simon's demo, the actual audio on it, actually sounded smoother than the SID chip, and that's coming straight off the CPU in the CoCo. It just really shows what the 6809 is capable of doing.
Well, we do have a SID player that was put out by Remzi. I can't remember what his real name is. He's from Europe, but he's wicked graphics and sound demos, and he has one that actually emulates a SID chip.
Yeah, but my point there was that what Simon's come up with here actually sounded smoother than the SID chip to me. It's he's used pulse.
Someone's eating their breakfast.
What was that?
Yep, that's me. Hey, Curtis, you wanna play Paul's video? It sounds like it is a demo with a 3-voice player with the Simon's 3-voice player and graphics in the background.
Is that this one here on that you posted in the Zoom chat too?
Nope.
There's a YouTube something somebody posted.
Oh, is it? Oh,
okay.
Thank you. Thanks, Mark.
Yeah.
Just a few tabs open.
No pressure.
Yeah, no pressure at all.
Just a few.
Thanks for surprising me, guys.
Ooh.
So is this from himself? Like he wrote this, or because it sounds like Simon's old demo? don't know if he's doing any hardware tricks with the scroll, because that's actually just a memory move. The fact he's got Dino Wars in there, I think, is cool.
You could turn this into a dinosaur version of Moon Patrol and just have him jumping over.
Yeah. Okay, I'm just reading his comment here. Adding joystick, jump button, and scoreboard. Still tons of cycles left and more to reclaim. This is using Simon Jonason's frequency player, so easy. Simon's old player.
Yeah, but I can't listen to this too much
Yeah.
longer.
After a while, you got to just turn it off.
I mean,
Well,
in Super Pitball, it played a tune, yeah, but I had the S key. You hit that, or was it the M key? It turned off the music.
Yeah, I think most of the games that do the background music usually have that option. Because, I mean, when you initially play it, it's cool. You get to hear this tune that goes with it. And after a while, it just, because it's the same tune over and over. And this doesn't matter what platform you're on. This is not specific to Simon's demos or CoCo or anything else. It's just, you get kind of tired of it. You want to put your headphones on and listen to your MP3 player type thing instead.
Yeah, Paul just using that as a test.
Yeah.
He's Paul's saying, guys, it's a proof of concept. Give him a break.
Yeah.
Even Super Mario Brothers, the music eventually mellows out.
Yeah.
Next item.
Next item. Gaming History Source, which has been doing some of these comparison videos of arcade games, both official ports and unofficial ports and clones, etc. Did a massive Pac-Man one, and he even said up front, I couldn't cover even close to all the clones because there's been so many. And he even included some of the electronic, stand-up ones. I think, Nick, you've got a Pac-Man sitting beside your monitor, Nick Marentes, I'm talking about. And actually, that's one of the ones he demoed on here. So he's even got the little mechanical LED ones type things. But two of the CoCo ones he put in here, I think he erroneously put Nick's Pac-Man tribute as a CoCo 1-2. It's not. It's CoCo 3, obviously. And he also put Hewlett's transcode of the arcade game. And I mean, compared to some of the other 8-bit machines that they brought in some of the homebrew better versions than the official ones too. And I think we hold up really, really well. The one problem is that for some reason on Nick's, the sound's a bit warbly and the colors are really, really faint. I don't know how the guy was playing or recording this, but it wasn't the best showing. So this is Glenn Hewlett's transcode version of it. And he always starts these videos with the original arcade games. You can kind of compare if you go back. And I think in this case, he might even be playing it in composite, I'm not even sure. And of course, Glenn has the vertical scroll option to play. He's got a little bit of a ripple in there too, so I don't know if that's his capture device. Fast forward to next year.
Oh, he actually has the correct.
Like here, you can see the maze is really faded. I'm not sure what.
This is the next version?
Yeah, this is Nick's, the tribute version. And the sound's really quiet. Like, I don't know what happened there. He had a few of the videos that had some little weirdness to it, so I'm not exactly sure what happened. But anyways, it was kind of cool because he's got 100 versions of Pac-Man in this video from every machine under the sun. FM7 to the XD Sorcerer to TI-99 to the Amiga to DOS, just tons of them. It's actually, if you're into Pac-Man and the history of Pac-Man as far as ports and clones go, it's actually quite an interesting video, but it's over 2 hours long. Just to warn you. Yeah, this is a special one here for Stevie Stroh and for Nick Marotta. You can see what happens after you clear a couple screens. Sorry, guys.
Nick Marotta getting thrown under the bus.
Pac-Man I was good at.
Oh, were you? Okay, we're going to have you do a live play at some point. Well, you should do good at Glenn's then, because Glenn's is using the actual arcade original software, so the pattern should work.
Yep. I noticed you said you were good at it. What happened? Sorry, I couldn't resist.
Years have gone by.
Wow.
And my last bit of news here, James Diffendaffer posted in Discord. He's been optimizing the MC10 basic ROMs, as we know, and I think him and William Astle have been passing some notes back and forth for the CoCo ROMs as well. So we did a comparison here running the stock ROM versus the modified ROMs. doing some of the stuff he's optimized. He optimized like string handling. He's optimized 4nex loops. He's optimized screen scrolling and a few other things. So he did a demo that basically is doing sorts of strings. Unfortunately, the two sides weren't started at the same time, so it's kind of hard to show, except for the fact that the left one starts earlier and the right one finishes first. I'm not going to play it because it's pretty boring watching a sort. But
so how would this work in a CoCo 3? Because it copies in the ROM to RAM and it makes the changes there. So could you?
Yeah, you can repatch it yourself. Yeah.
Okay.
Now this,
so
this
you
is
could.
MC10 Pacific. This is 6803 code he's doing here, but.
But
I think he said he's got MC10 Basic running between 5 to 15% faster, which is almost like native mode on a 609 on a CoCo 3. So it's a pretty good speed up. And for Jim Gary, I mean, it might help some of his games get a bit more complex when he gives them a bit more time to do.
Well, if you want to run Jim Gary's programs on a real computer, I did post the link to Jim Gary's OS 9 Level 2 Basic 09 games earlier in the chat.
Oh, okay. Yeah, he's had a few out, which we got to actually try running under the newest versions of these of use too, because I've sped up a lot of the graphic stuff too. So,
Are we saying that the MC10 is not a real computer?
No comment.
I was waiting for Steve Bjork to pipe in on that one, but
everybody knows my opinion of that piece.
The MC10, I give it 5 stars
out of 100.
No, the reason I give it 5 stars, it's 1 star for every minute I played with it.
Anyway, that's all the news I had. The other pictures for a segment later on, so I'll stop sharing. It's summer, so I mean, not a lot of stuff's happening, but.
Well, I mean, I don't know if you want to cover it now, but we could just do a quick reminder that VCF West is next week, Saturday and Sunday, San Jose, actually Mountain View, California, near the Computer History Museum.
In the Computer History Museum.
In the Computer History Museum. Mark O and Mikey, myself, and Tim Lindner will be there. You can read about what we're up to on the VCF West site that I'll post in the chat.
What days are those on again?
August 3rd and 4th.
That's Saturday, Sunday, or?
Yep, Saturday.
Yep.
Will you guys
on
live streaming? Live streaming? Yeah, that was my question.
Yes, we will be. We will do something similar to what the Music Man did during CoCo Fest. So we'll have some kind of laptop or something that will silently stream in the background, and we might be able to do a quick shaky cam, but not too long, just to kind of show what's going on. And that's one of the advantages of having CoCoTALK be live during the day is we can show a little bit of live video.
Okay, because I wouldn't mind seeing like some of the show floor, like we've seen some VCS stuff before, just to see what's out there. But I wouldn't mind also seeing, because you guys are actually setting up a booth to demonstrate some of the CoCo stuff, is to show reactions to it. Like, what do people that are not normally knowledgeable about the CoCo, what do they think about some of the stuff you're showing?
Yeah, that's a really good reminder, because that's something that we might forget to do. Is actually, so I'll try to remember to do that and we'll get a bunch of video from around the floor. But also I will take a video of, let's say somebody's talking to Mikey about something, and even if it's just, even if you can't hear what they're saying, I could do, describe it later. So we'll try to get some of that. Curtis, good idea.
It'd be nice to see something. It would be kind of like seeing, Nick Morendi's reaction when we did the OS 9 commercial with Nick Marionettes or something like that. That could be a goal.
Or my reaction when I saw Nick Marentes using OS 9. I think that was shocking.
Did you turn pale?
Yes, I did. I turned several shades of pale.
A whiter shade of pale.
Yeah.
So
when I used to watch Nick on OS 9, it was usually he was dragging everything on the desktop of OS 9 onto that new fancy trash can he designed. So
too cluttery.
So
gotta go.
Anything, Mark, you think we should talk about what's on the tables? I mean, we'll have hardware demos. We've got, I believe I have the software to the game that's sort of like Super Mario Brothers, Circe.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we're just going to try to show off as much new CoCo stuff as possible. So we got
on the Game Master cartridge, and we've got the CoCo FPGA, the CoCo Pi, obviously Nitrous 9 ease of use. Popstar Pilot, and all sorts of things.
Yeah,
Also
and,
got,
and a shameless plug for the boomerang. I'm sorry, I just had to.
Oh yes,
yes, we will have the boomerang. We will have the paragons. We'll have bomb threat. We'll have Forest of Doom. We'll have all the latest software.
Well, one of the things I was going to mention was I'm also going to send you guys it's going to be a proof of concept, and it's going to be a demo. It's going to be a real-time clock. I mean, I'm not kidding about this. This is an actual real-time clock you could put into the ROM socket, and you could put a ROM on top of it, so it'll fit right inside. It can go to any ROM cartridge, or ROM that's 24 pin or 28 pin.
Ah.
Now,
So
I
how many
mentioned
machines
this.
are you guys having set up at this booth? Like, how big is your booth here with all this stuff being
Two
demoed? Like, are
tables.
you taking turns with everything? Like, for the first hour I'm showing this, next hour I'm showing this, or is there a whole bunch of things set up at once?
We're gonna have
Well,
to.
It's two tables. I mean, and there's two CoCo 3s, a CoCo 2, and then you have like the FPGA/Pi. So it all should kind of fit. We'll have to see how. I'm a little concerned about kind of how the monitors are going to look, but Mikey's kind of working on that. So
Okay.
it's a
And
lot
Steve,
of stuff.
Steve Bjork, is this close enough to you that you'll be able to attend and take a look at it if you want?
Sadly, I have a convention in my main business that weekend.
Oh, okay. Shoot, it would be kind of cool to have you there to kind of just pop in and say hi too.
So anyway, I posted the link for the event, and if you are on the West Coast somewhere, you never know. You can get a quick flight on Southwest. You may be able to go. So check prices, and maybe if you might be able to drive. In any case, you are where it all began. Apple and everything except Tandy started in Silicon Valley. So.
Yeah.
So join us. That's my VCF West update.
Sure, when you're there, take a tour and go see the flying saucer over at Apple.
Yes, the new Apple campus. Absolutely.
And then security will escort you out.
Is the old HP garage still there too?
In Palo Alto?
I think
Packard
so.
started?
I think you,
Yeah,
I think you can tour that.
Yeah.
Kind of cool. That's a bit of history too. So anyway, thanks for that update. We kind of mentioned it last week, but you weren't here, so it's nice to get some.
Yep, I saw that. Yep, Mikey did his update last week, and I thought I'd mention it just because it is coming up just a week from today, and then we will do maybe a video recap, a recorded recap the week after.
Okay, yeah, and get some reaction videos if you can from the other people singing. We don't usually see these at these fests, and I'd like to see what the other guys think.
Yeah,
now, I wish I had that.
I was
Go
going to
ahead.
say I'm not sure because this is a family show, and I'm sure there's going to be some violence.
Yeah, I wish I had that guy, Billy Eichner or something, the man on the street guy who runs up to people and yells at them with the microphone. That would be cool. To be like, Tandy Color Computer, what's your reaction? But anyway, I guess I'm the only one that has seen that.
I've seen that.
All right.
Okay, I don't think we have any more news here. I mean, Nick's got a little announcement to do in the Game On segment, but I think Steve, you mentioned we want to do a commercial where
Yep, we're going to go do a commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about our fond memories of the early days of the CoCo when we first got involved with it.
You want to use that to segue into the commercial?
And now, CoCo Thoughts by Samuel Gimes. If the adapter that lets your joystick work with CoCo Max is called a high-res joystick interface, why is the one that lets you use an Atari joystick not a low-res joystick interface?
Hey, have you got your CoCo 3 yet? Hi, this is Rick Adams, author of Temple of ROM and Shanghai, and you've tuned into CoCoTALK, the nation's leading live talk show featuring the Tandy Color Computer.
Get ready What's going on, everybody? Original Gamer Stevie Stroh here, and if you're a fan of vintage computing and retro gaming, then you're going to love our retro swag shop at 8bit256.com. There you will find custom designs by Instagram artist Joel M. Adams. You can get I'm a Coconut, CoCoTALK, and other cool video game images on a t-shirt, coffee mug, or mouse pad. So if you love retro, then head on over to the retro swag shop at 8bit256.com today. Tell them the Original Gamer Stevie Stroh sent you.
Let the Radio Shack TRS-80 put the world of color computing into your home. Instant loading program packs turn any color TV into an exciting game arcade. And there's more. The color computer is an educational aid, a home management tool, an up-to-the-minute electronic information service. The programmable, expandable TRS-80 color computer from $399 only at Radio Shack, the biggest name in little computers.
Hi, I'm Bruce Moore, and this is Jacob Moore, gotcha. And we are the Forest of Doom guys, and the Coco Forever guys, and we are Coco Fest, and we love Stevie Stroh.
Imagine a different world. A world where Tandy Corporation has the upper hand. Where the Coco surpassed all competitors. And all you have to do is travel back in time without making a single mistake. Coco Forever.
How does it feel? I'm still believing.
You definitely earned this office.
Yes, you're too kind, and thank you.
You want to grab some food before we head back and look at that Alt Reality OS9 module?
It's only 40 years past due, but yeah, sure.
How does it feel? I'm still believing. Radio Shack, America's technology store.
Computer shopping has never been better at Radio Shack. Here's proof. Our new ultra-high-performance 386SX 20 megahertz computer with 85 megabyte hard drive, only $12.99. And it's from Tandy, manufacturer of the best-selling PC compatibles in America. Or get a 286-based Tandy home office computer with color monitor and hard drive, only $899.95. Shop your friendly nearby Radio Shack. Great selection, superior service. Nobody compares.
We now return you to CoCoTALK.
Oh, seeing the Tandy business stuff just hurts me. What it did to the Coco.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I mean, it just, the way the stores operate, it's like, okay, we could put this $30 game here, or in the same spot, we can put this $300 piece of business software. Which one do you think the store wants to put there? Even though they're going to sell a lot more of the $30 game, it's still that's the way they looked at it.
Yeah, unfortunately, that was an industry-wide thing too, because I mean, everybody else was starting to make PC compatibles too, even with Commodore and stuff. And all the independent computers kind of went to the wayside, late '80s, early '90s. So
exactly.
Apple. Dark ages.
Oh, they hanged on to that Apple II line for the longest time.
Yeah, the 2GS was out to what, 93 or something?
No, 86 to about 89, 90. The last Apple II was the Platinum, which was 93. But no, they had to keep it around because the Mac wasn't paying the bills. The Apple II paid the bills.
Didn't Microsoft help keep Apple going too?
Well, that was
way later. That was when Steve came back in '97.
The $150 million bailout.
Yep. But
they kept the stock from that, they'd be rich. Sorry,
as you guys can tell, we're already talking about our fond computer memories, but let's narrow them down to the Coco back in the days. And I think I'm going to call on Bruce. I mean, not Bruce. Yeah, Bruce Moore. Go ahead. You got your hand up.
Thank you. You're too kind. I was thinking about memories. I thought, what would I share? And I pulled up the first newsletter of my computer club, and I just flipped it open here to see it, because this is where we're talking about the Coco. The Coco was new, because this was dated The newsletter was dated 82, but it gives a little bit of history. And so it appears here that we sold pens and had bottle drives, when you could return bottles for exchange, and some membership fees. And we raised enough money in the spring of 81 to make a down payment on a 4K color computer with cassette recorder. So that was the big move, because until that point, the club didn't actually own a computer. There were, I think, maybe 3 or 4 guys who had Model 3s, I guess it was. Maybe there was a Model 1 in there too. So they would pack it all up and bring it down to the library and set it up, and we would get to see these computers. So that was, so we're really making a move here, and that I have that 4K CoCo that ended up with me in the end. And then when I just look down here, it looks like in December of 81, the club voted to upgrade the computer to 32K of RAM with extended color basic. But I don't know if you guys remember this, 32K RAM was in short supply. We couldn't actually get it. Anybody remember what that was about, why that was? Wasn't the whole bad chip, 64K chip thing going on, or what?
No, probably a factory burn down is usually. Factory burn down is usually what the problem was.
Usually, yeah. Right. So then, so we couldn't actually do that upgrade, or I'd have a 32K extended color basic computer instead of the old 4K.
Yeah. Well, back in the days with you're talking about not being able to get the memory.
Yep.
People were speculating on memory as a commodity, and they would buy up entire supplies of memory and then dish them out and make tremendous amount of money. And year after year, I kept seeing the same thing.
Mm.
In America, memory dropped in price right about April because these guys had to sell off stock to pay their income tax. And
so
the more money, the higher the memory went up during the previous 6 months, the more stock got sold and the more it dropped. It really would drop quite a bit. It would be
very volatile.
Basically, memory that was running at $400 could drop down below 100.
Wow!
In April. So
now there was a separate, if you're in the CoCo 3 era, the late 80s, there was I can't remember when exactly that was. I remember that was when Burke and Burke started selling the quarter meg, because there was a huge fire or something, and one of the main manufacturing places in Japan for RAM basically burned to the ground, and RAM became exceedingly expensive and also hard to get industry wide, so the prices went up, and that's when Burke and Burke introduced the 256K upgrade, because they could keep the price down to what the old 512K was, and a lot of the programs would run with 256 that supposedly needed 512. So that was, I think it lasted maybe 6 months to a year until the factory was rebuilt.
Right,
we're back to normal.
What you're referring to was the earthquake in Kobe, Japan, and it was a resin that there's only 2 plants in the planet that actually made it. So when that was destroyed, that was when you had the huge shortage of the memory chips.
Yeah, there's been many shortages because of plants burning down, earthquakes taking out supplies of manufacturing. It's been a volatile industry, pun intended. But the thing is, even back in those days, like in the color computer, I remember working at Datasoft, and we also had other companies that are associated with me, and with our company, and one of them dealt with memory chips and supplies. They were involved in the commodity exchange type of thing going on. And then we also had a retail outlet that sold this stuff. And one day we got raided by the feds, and we had to step away from our desk while the feds searched with their search warrants for the memory chips that were part of the speculation. And they opened up the drawer to my desk, and they found these EEPROMs in there, and the guy acted like he just found gold.
It's like he got the big bag of cocaine or something, right?
Exactly. I mean, he looked at me like he was ready to put handcuffs on me.
Got you.
Yeah.
We got you.
Well, they called over the boss, and the boss looks at it, and he pulls out a picture of what the chips are looking for. No, this is not it. These chips are too big, because they were looking for little DIMMs. And
No, actually, you were just like flicking your hand saying, these are not the chips you're looking for.
You got it, exactly.
Move
And
along.
the funniest thing was, in the bottom of the drawer, underneath a bunch of other stuff, was some 64K memory chips that they were looking for. So I was kind of sweating anyways. So
Truth comes out.
yeah, but
So
those
weren't they looking
64
for, like-
chips were regular chips. But the thing is, in this investigation, they were thinking that anybody that had these chips was part of these people that were doing illegal speculating and stuff like that. So it's just the federal government had weird things they were doing back then.
They still do.
Yeah.
Well, never heard of that one. That's interesting
Yeah.
scam there. So I've got just a little more on this.
Yep.
Some interesting numbers here. So there was a business meeting then called about what to do about this in April of '82, and we got a set of 8 options for what we should do instead of buying that upgrade, and there are prices here too. So this will be interesting. So option 1 was just wait for the 32K memory and extended basic ROM, which would have been, these are Canadian dollars, okay? That would have been $380. We could instead upgrade just to 16K with the extended basic for $320. So that was a difference of $60. We could just go ahead and purchase a second computer, a second CoCo one with 32K and extended color basic for $900. We could bypass all that, get a printer for $500 or a disk drive, but you'd have to have 16K for the disk drive, so we'd have to get that in the drive, and that'll be $800. A word processing pack. This was apparently the new thing, a cartridge. What would that have been in '82?
Scripts it?
Yeah,
I don't
scripts
know.
it.
Probably, yeah. That was $50. And then number 7 was a good black and white TV, as opposed to any black and white TV, for $100, or a 12-inch color TV for $500. So those were the options we were with at that time. And I honestly can't remember what we ended up doing. We didn't get the upgrades. We may have ended up getting a VIC-20 at some point. I'm sorry to say, but I know that did happen somewhere down the road. So anyway, those are my some early memories from which I didn't really remember until I pulled out this old newsletter. So
yeah,
there it is.
Cool. I've got a fairly lengthy one, but I'll let other people go first because
I just wanted to add one thing. People don't remember just how costly it was to do things back there.
Oh yeah.
When you consider that you could get a 50-cent hamburger back at McDonald's back in the day, and I'm talking a good big one.
Yeah, and these prices, of course, these are from '82. So I don't know what adjusted to today's dollars. It's a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I remember in Canada, the 4K CoCo one when it was first announced was $549.
Wow.
I was saving up for it.
And down the States, it was $400 for a 4K.
Yeah. And what's the adjustment for that? What does it come out to? Like 1,500 or something or more?
That's got to be at least that, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Shocking. But
massive 4K.
Yeah.
I remember I remember talking to my bosses saying, I need 2 CoCos to do my work. And I had to spend over a half hour justifying to them how I was writing the program on one and transferring it to the other one, so I didn't have to keep saving and loading it to cassette. And it was nuts trying to convince them of that.
Well, but your productivity went way up, though.
Oh, yeah.
Like the speed you could put stuff out.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. I heard somebody saying something.
Yeah, I was going to mention one of my fondest memories of the CoCo was back in the early '80s when these little grey case beauties were on the market, brand new. And talking of 4K, well, this was a 16K one, but the story behind acquiring this particular one, this exact one I've got behind me, that's my original one from the early '80s. I was into, before that I was into Z80 systems. I was into programming an Australian computer called the Micro B and a Dick Smith System 80, which had a Z80 processor, or Z80 as you guys say.
Let's go.
Oh, you're right. It's Z80.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right, Z80. That's how I say it.
Yeah.
Come on, Marilla.
Come on, go outside.
Yeah,
let's go outside. Come on.
All these foreigners and their weird pronunciation of English.
Come on, let's go outside.
Right. Sorry, how do you spell color again?
What have I triggered here? What's going on here?
Grant is letting out his dog. And the internet has to know, but at least he's not in the bathroom.
Well, we have the answer to who let the dogs out.
I thought it might have been, I've just been eating Subway cookies and I thought someone might have put some LSD in them or something and I started tripping.
Really good.
Yeah. Anyway, getting back to the story of how I acquired this particular one. I'd seen the ads for the color computer. I thought, oh, color, wow, and 6809 processor and everything, and it was like, oh, I really, really, really want one of these TRS-80s. This looks so cool. And being a geeky teenager at the time, and Mum and Dad were really supportive of my whole journey into computing and everything, and they thought it was great that I was really interested in it, and getting into the programming side of things and all the rest of that, and so I remember one day I was in the car with Dad. And we started talking about computers and what I was, programs I was writing and stuff. And he said to me, he says, "Oh, you want to go around and get a TRS-80? You want one? We'll go around and we'll turn the car around and we'll go back into Tandy and we'll get you one right now." And my jaw nearly hit the floor. I thought, "Are you serious? Wow!" And so yeah, Dad literally turned the car around and we drove back to Tandy Electronics and parked out the front and came home with this shiny new 16K at the time TRS-80 with its chiclet keyboard, and which I then upgraded to 64K in not long after, and put a proper CoCo 2 keyboard in it, which it's still got now. And that was my entry into the TRS-80, and it's still working now with Ed Snyder's CoCo VGA and the CoCo SDC on the side, and who would have guessed? Nearly 40 years later, I'm still using it.
Did it have extended basic initially?
Yes, it did. Yeah, 16K extended color basic.
So you didn't have to retype the command lines over and over again, or the basic lines over and over again. You could edit them.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, it was fantastic.
Yeah, I remember the color basic horror days when you had to retype everything, especially when you're trying to pack lines on a 4K machine. So you got 250 characters crammed in there, and one typing boot mistake.
Yeah.
Yep.
David, I have a question for you, David.
Yeah.
David, do you suppose that your father had already decided on this and was just kind of stringing you along with questions and stuff, and then made it into a big event like that, possibly?
In hindsight, probably, no doubt, knowing Dad. Yeah, he was just waiting for an opportunity to do that. So yeah, that would not surprise me in the slightest.
Yeah, that sounds great.
It made my day. I come home and unpacked it, and I'm sitting there and started writing programs on it instantly, and Mum and Dad couldn't get me off it. "Oh, it's tea time. Oh, hang on, I just want to try this." And it became addictive, and it still is.
And Rick Adams, it looks like you had a couple things you wanted to say there too.
Yeah.
So.
Sure, absolutely. When I first got my first color computer, we had just moved, and so my kids were having a lot of trouble in school, kind of fitting in because they were the new kids in town, and they didn't really know how to relate to the people in their classrooms. And we got an Atari system, an Atari game system, Atari VCS, and so we had some game cartridges for that. And all of a sudden, my sons could fit in at school because they're like, "Oh, you're playing this game? Yeah, we're playing that too. Oh, how do you get to this level?" So they were able to deal with that. And then when I got the color computer, all of a sudden, not only did they have a game system at home, but they had two game systems, and one of them had a bunch of games, had games that were written by me and my friends. So then they can go to say, not only are we playing these same games that you're playing, but we also are playing these other games that our dad did.
Rockstar!
Whoa, you are so cool. Yeah. And they would have me go to their school and we would like videotape us playing the games, and then we would go. It was sort of like bring your dad to school, and what does he do for a living? And he writes video games, and all the kids are like, whoa. And so we'd show those, and that's how we got the gameplay video for Bomb Threat. When Bomb Threat was lost forever, my kids remembered that we had one of those videos that they had brought to school that had them playing Bomb Threat and various other things. Plus we got to, we were basically beta testers for all of Dale Lear's games, so we got but Double Back and Color Baseball and stuff like that. So I don't really remember what I programmed on it before. I must have put in some basic programs or something, but before the big deal was when I got an Edit-a-Sem Plus cartridge and started programming my own games. So I do remember when I got we had to get like the cheapest color computer you could get, which is like 4K. And so I sat down with a Rainbow magazine and said, well, let me try typing in, this basic program. And I got about 3/4 done with that, and it said out of memory. And I said, well, this sucks, So I had friends that knew, hardware, and they told me how you would, you could piggyback, the piggyback technique for putting more memory. So you take your existing memory chips, and then you just solder a bunch of memory chips of the same size on top of those. And then there was one address line that you would, bend up and solder into someplace else. And I actually knew how to solder, and I was somewhat good at hardware. So I did that with, because I didn't feel really confident with my soldering ability. So it's like, well, let me just solder another set of 4K chips on top of these. So for a while I had an 8K color computer.
8K, that's something.
8K, yeah. And then I did it, for real with, more chips than, more storage than that. So that's my story.
Now, back in those days, it was an experiment, costly to experiment. If you went wrong, you lost that money you just invested in that 4K and the 4K that was on the machine.
Yeah, RAM chips are expensive back then too.
Yeah, yeah. It was real expensive.
Yeah.
I remember when I did the 64K upgrade on mine, it was like the thing that took me the longest was saving the money to get to buy the chips.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember the 16K, like the 4 to 16K, where you just basically replace the 4004 or 40, whatever that was, 04s with the 4116s. And it was, I think in Canada, it was like, when it first got released, it was almost $200 just for 16K.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, at first, Radio Shack sold the upgrades. And of course, they had to do the upgrades themselves, and you never got the old memory back. And then they got in trouble. I think actually somebody brought a lawsuit because you could go in and buy the memory upgrade and they just simply gave it to you. But if Tandy installed it, they had to have back the old upgrades. Also, the other way Tandy was selling it, it was questionable whether you were upgrading from 4K to 32K or were you adding 32K. And some of the ads were add 32K of memory to your CoCo. That's a bit different than going from 4 to 32K.
Or 16.
Well, you are adding
or 16
after you crack the rest.
Yeah, but you're not getting 36K out of the deal. You're getting 32K.
Upgrade to 32K.
Exactly.
Yeah, the reason they did that, they didn't. Most of the shops didn't return it is because some customers didn't really care, or they didn't even know. But what the shops would do is when they kept the other memory, they would include it in their inventory. So when it came around inventory time, the auditing, those chips would show up, and it would be considered an inventory gain. So let's say that you did like 10, 16 upgrades from 4K to 16K, and you had 10 sets of those 4K chips. You counted all those, and let's say that there were $5 each, and times 5. So you would get that as an inventory gain on your balance sheet at the end. You didn't get any additional money, but what some shops would do is like, oh, okay, I got like a $400 gain, in their mind. So sometimes they would swipe $400 worth of parts out of the shop for their own machines.
Mm-hmm.
I can't tell you, or I don't know firsthand would somebody would ever do something like that, because one of the first computers I owned with Radio Shack that I actually paid for was a Color Computer 2, and it was a 16K. But when I walked out of it that night, it was a 64K with extended basic, and it didn't cost me anything.
Well, the feeling that a lot of people had is that Tandy was keeping the memory upgrades and reusing them.
In some cases, they did. So, let's say, for example, some people went from 16K to 32K or 64K, and we kept the 16K chips. And some people went from 4K to 16K, or let's say that someone brought in a repair and they had a bad 16K chip. Well, we would use one of the used chips, of course, because it was inventory.
Exactly.
Now what really bit some people in the behind, the shops, was some of them kept accumulating all these 4K chips. I mean, they literally had thousands of them. And after a while, what happens is if you don't use these chips in store, we'll say that system-wide, they had different categories of each item. Category one was something that was used almost every day. Category 6 was something that had not been used in over 2 years. And so when you did an inventory, any parts that were called Cat 6, you had to destroy, and you actually lost money off of them. So when the 4K chips finally became Category 6, there was some shops that lost $3,000, $4,000, up to $5,000 in inventory loss, because they could no longer count those chips.
It'd be a Category 6 hurricane, sounds like.
Yeah. It was hilarious when that happened.
Oh.
In our shop, it didn't really affect us because we never counted those chips, and I didn't either. I just say this is kind of useless to have those chips on hand.
Yeah, I mean, what would you do with them? Who would want 4K chips, really? When you
nobody wanted them. I mean, basically, we just stuffed them, in a drawer, and some people had them in boxes. I mean, it was,
there might be a few 4K machines that need a replacement, but yeah, it'd be very
that was so rare.
they just go to 16K.
Yeah.
Or 64.
Right.
You're reminding me of, how Radio Shack talked about, they're very careful. This should only be installed by, certified, blah, blah, blah. They really, it really scared you, and then that sticker on the bottom, right? Warranty. I was terrified of all that. And it's like, oh my goodness, I wouldn't dare do something like that. But then my buddy who lived up the street who had a CoCo, Glenn, for some reason he wasn't terrified, and he ordered the extended color basic, I guess it was. So he must have had at least 16K in his CoCo. He ordered the chip, and I come over one day and he's got all these new commands. Like, what'd you do? Well, I ordered the chip and I put it in. I said, you what? Well, how did you do that? Oh my goodness. He says, well, I opened it up. You broke it. Yeah, I broke the sticker. I opened it up and I looked around because we didn't have any clue what computers look like on the inside, right? He said, I looked around, I saw the spot that looked like, probably looks like, well, that's where it goes. So then he said, I just popped it in and that was it. And I was like, what?
Yeah, we loved it when we repaired units, they measured us by how many units per hour you would produce, and they were looking for at least 1 unit per hour minimum. So when a color computer came in with extended basic upgrade, everybody was jumping at it. I mean, it was because it was just it was one of the easiest upgrades. But then when it was a CoCo 1 and they wanted to do a 32K upgrade, that was when it was a nightmare, because you had to make so many cuts and
especially the D board and C board.
The D board, you're just like, oh no, you know.
I know up here in Canada, most of the D boards they didn't bother upgrading; they just swapped an E or an F.
Yeah.
Yeah, mine's an E-board. It was reasonably easy.
Yeah, and the problem with those 32K chips that I don't know what Tandy was up to. They had either they bought these defective because they had a high bank and a low bank where they were disabled. But after a while, there was so much confusion with those that they just decided, well, we're gonna do away with those, and we're gonna make them 64K. But we never told the customer that, especially in the CoCo ones, they would come in and get a 32K upgrade, even though it was 64K. And then when all of a sudden, when OS 9 came out, some people would put it in, it didn't work because they only had 32K.
Well, back in the days for the 32K of memory, it was the fact that they were able to buy banks of them cheaply because the manufacturers made 64K memories and there was a defective bit.
Right.
And these would be trashed. And of course, if their defective bits are in one bank and not the other, Tandy could use them. And Tandy wasn't the only one selling 32 upgrades, but Tandy with the CoCo was notorious for it.
Right.
Yeah, my E-board had the jumpers for 32K upper or lower or 64K. And that was the one thing I had to do when I upgraded it from 16 was put the jumpers in the right spot. But that was really easy compared to upgrading a D board or something like that.
Yeah, Barry Thompson at Tandy admitted that they were getting the 32K memory chips for less than 25% of the cost of a 64K memory chip. And
So I have
So
I have an addendum to my story, which is that a little bit later at work, I was an applications programmer and I really wanted to get into the systems department because I wanted to do operating system stuff. And they had this project where they wanted to do a 68,000, Motorola 68,000 version of the operating system. And Dale Lear said, we got a guy that does 6809 process coding. That's Rick Adams, and that's the little brother to the 68,000. So why don't we bring him on board? So that got me my big break at work.
There's a little difference between the 6809, 68,000, as in lots of registers.
Hush.
Yeah. At least all the right Indian order.
The managers don't need to know the details.
Right.
Exactly.
It's made by the same manufacturer.
There you go.
Yeah, it starts with 68 and it's got an O in it.
It's got 68 in it. What they don't know won't hurt them.
Yeah, I can tell you some of the other fond memories I had when working for Radio Shack. What was the huge advantages? We got to I got to repair all kinds of machines, so I knew firsthand which machines were good, as far as a hardware point of view, and which ones were junk and I would avoid. And I wasn't really a big fan of the CoCo one, and it's because of that upgrade. And also, I didn't really care for the chiclet keyboard. But when the CoCo 2 came out, that's when I, decided to go ahead and buy one. The other thing is I didn't like the first generation disk drives. Those are the 263022s with the
35 track tech ones.
Yeah, the 35 track tech drive, and it had that like spindle type camshaft garbage, and didn't really care for it. So when the next one came out, I had bought that one, but the biggest advantages when it came to the software is, I could actually go into, our repair shops were in the back of the computer stores, and we could go up front, talk to the manager or someone like that, and get, take something off the shelf and copy it, and get to play with it at home, which was kind of cool. Except for Sands of Egypt, which I actually had to buy because I don't know who it was, the author decided to put some kind of copy protection scheme on it, which, kind of ruined it for me.
Just keeping you honest.
And Sands of Egypt actually used the 20 millisecond track to track too, which was the fastest that first generation drive could handle.
Right.
I can't remember who it was, but somebody who is known for doing cracks of color computer games sent me an email once saying, you know, you're just no fun because all your games don't have any copy protection on them.
But yeah, and when it came to Sands of Egypt, what was kind of cool about it, I mean, I was getting frustrated with trying to solve it, that I finally, you know, we got to call, we could call tech support, and I got through the software, and of course I was asking for hints for Sands of Egypt.
Tip line.
Yeah, it was the tip line. They gave me all the tips. Because I was trying to find this axe, and I say, "Where is this axe at? Oh, it's on top of the pyramid. Oh, okay.
Well, you just
that's
gotta
where
look
it is.
around.
Oh my goodness. Now I know.
Yeah.
So did Tandy have any guidelines or requests or
No.
policies about copy protection
No.
programs, like whether you should put them in or put it in?
Tandy had their own copy protection system for discs, because they want to make sure they could duplicate them. So Sands of Egypt and all the other things that I sold through them use their form of copy protection. And Zaxxon, though, they never bought the disc version. And matter of fact, the Zaxxon was actually manufactured by Datasoft. So the way everything was done was under Datasoft's control. But all the other disc games that I sold were their protection system, which I thought was a bit of crap.
Shanghai was supposed to have copy protection. They kept saying, "Now you're going to add copy protection." I said, "Oh yes, oh yes." You know, yeah, you haven't added that. You know, when are you going to add that? Oh, soon, soon. And eventually they just forgot all about it, and you know, and then that didn't happen, which was fine with me. So
Yep, and that's why Bill Noble managed to port it to OS9 pretty easily.
Mm-hmm. See, copy protection, when it works well, it has multiple levels where it's checking to see, did somebody try and defeat my protection? Then there's code to see if somebody tried to defeat that. And you just keep going. In the case of Sands of Egypt, there was about 5 levels, and they would happen later in the game. So you would think you broke the copy protection, and then all of a sudden you die. So it took them a little while to break it.
Yeah.
Not
Stevie
saying-
Stroy, I see you've got your video active here. Did you want to pipe in there too?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm raising my hand. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have tons of fond memories, but I'll try to get some bullet points. So obviously the first fond memory would be actually getting the CoCo, you know. So I think I was hanging out in the Radio Shack, you know, since the TRS-80, before it was even called the Model 1. So I had a couple of years of just kind of drooling over monochrome systems. And when the CoCo first came out in 1980, I wasn't even old enough to work to make any money to buy it. So it wasn't until 1981 where I could start working, because at that time the legal minimum age was 14, and there was only one place that would hire you at 14. Everybody else wanted you to be 15. So I got hired at 14 to save the money to buy the CoCo, and I don't remember how long it took, but I just remember bringing it home. You know, I had the 16K silver CoCo 1 with color basic, a cassette player, and 2 joysticks, and that was my entry into CoCo-ness. You know, so that I can say the first fond memory is just bringing home that first CoCo, and I think I ended up getting probably Pyramid on cassette, you know, text adventure game, no cartridges or anything. So even that was pretty cool, just getting that. And one of the things, like what Bruce was saying, you know, I didn't understand anything about hardware, so it was not only was it like a mystery, but part of it too was kind of like you felt really loyal to your store managers and sales guys, because they let you hang out there for years as a snotty kid playing with the machine. So I wanted to, if I could, let the store upgrade my computer. But it just so happened on this one evening we were visiting a friend's house. They also had a CoCo, and they were playing Donkey King. And I saw Donkey King. I was like, oh man, I gotta have this. I want to play this, because at the time, like the ColecoVision was the gold standard for home Donkey Kong, and this blew it away. And I was like, well, what? You know, I don't have 32K, And up until that moment, if anybody had offered, if any stranger said, say, I'll put memory in your computer, I would have been like, no, back off, you know. But, you know, the guy's dad is like, oh, I can add 32K to your computer. And I was like, well, dude, Donkey King, 32K, make it so, number one, you know. So I just let the stranger open up my computer and put the RAM in there because I wanted to play that game so bad, you know. So couple of my quickest, fondest memories. And then obviously, at that point, you're able to play Zaxxon again. So now we had two games that rivaled the ColecoVision, which was kind of the gold standard. So the ColecoVision Donkey Kong and the ColecoVision Zaxxon were the ultimate home arcade experience. And then the CoCo had two games that rivaled both of those. So that was kind of pretty proud at that time.
If I can just add one thing that you said there, Stevie, I still think that the Zaxxon on the ColecoVision looked better than mine.
It might have been more colorful, but I think the CoCo version played a lot better. It was smoother and more responsive.
Yeah, I remember the Apple II version. I mean, had a bit more color, I think, but it didn't play anywhere near as well.
Yeah, well, you guys had NTSC, so it looked really good.
yeah, black and white for us.
Oh, look, I'm flying over a checkerboard.
Yeah, all of P made 4 black and white patterns.
Well, it's like, do I make the game for the large American market or do I make it for a micro market? I think I'll stick with the American market.
USA.
Well, it's also the fact, I mean, what were your choices of palettes if you did want to? I mean, we've seen what it looks like on, you know, the pastel-y looking.
Yeah, kind of don't want to think too much about it because, you know, I got to have lunch later. I want to be able to enjoy it.
we didn't even know what artifact colors were over here. Yeah. We'd never even heard of artifact colors.
I actually did get some artifacting. I believe I may have had an NTSC computer because I had 6 or 7 of them, CoCos.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I did get some with what did have the blue and the red. Sometimes the red was more orange.
Yep.
So
well, that's all based. It's all because of your tint adjustment.
NTSC, never the same color.
Yeah, pretty much.
How perfect at last.
Back in the 70s, when the late night talk shows come on, they had these nice modern suits had all these checkers and stripes on them, and they were a rainbow pattern.
Yep.
Johnny Carson would wear that suit once, and then he had to go find another one, and then he would wear it once. And after going through a week of this, he finally realized he can't wear those black and white suits.
Yeah, get a real rap over the knuckles from the TV executives.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
I don't know what happened.
It fell apart.
Yeah.
Screws came out.
I was playing it and the screws just worked their way loose automatically.
I was playing hard, I tell you.
I came home from college and I had a CoCo 3 at that time, but we had a CoCo 2 at home, and my little brother went, yeah, the CoCo isn't working anymore. Oh, let's take a look. And I go, and it's in the bottom of his closet in pieces everywhere. Oh, I see. Okay.
Well, my friends would always come to me because not only could I open up the computer and knew where everything was, I had the way to open up the computer and have the warranty sticker still intact. I grabbed my sister's hairdryer and melted the glue. I mean, it was like, but the thing is, I knew how, see, if you just did average, you could tell that it had been peeled off. No. I knew how to get it up so it never looked like it was removed.
Yeah, you just slide it. Once the glue started to melt, you just slide it over across away from the screw hole. And
Oh, no, it stayed on the screw hole. A few of my friends had me move it off to the other side, away from the screw hole, but they wanted to make sure they could take it back to Radio Shack under warranty.
Oh, because what we did is we just melted enough to slide it over. You get inside, do whatever you're doing, then melt it again to slide it back over top the hole, and then
yeah.
We never opened it. What are you talking about?
Oh, I even had a better advantage than all of you guys because I actually had the warranty stickers.
There you go.
I got a 12-pack right here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, Richard, did they ever come out with a warranty sticker where you had to sign it or something? I seem to remember that.
Yeah, on the repair ones you did, you would have to put the shop number and the date and then your initials. They used to have the repairs inside the case, but then they moved away from that.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a pretty common thing in repair circles. I worked as a service tech for quite a few years. It's a radio tradesman, TV repair tech. And yeah, it was quite common to have the tech that was working on something sign. It was like a quality control thing, just to say that you'd done the job properly, basically.
Yeah, we also had a ticket that we had to sign or fill out with the part numbers and everything, and then we also had a logbook that we had to fill out to show, how many units per hour that we were doing.
Well, let's see. Mark and Grant, they've been pretty quiet. Why don't we go to Mark and have you tell us about your first experiences?
Marco or Mark D?
Mark over.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm new to the CoCo. My first CoCo was a CoCo 3. It was brand new in box. I got it from this guy I knew who had an Apple IIe Platinum that he was getting rid of. This was like 2012, so it's only been like 7 years. Anyway, so he had this whole Apple IIe Platinum with a monitor. I think this may be the monitor actually, and disk drives and a whole bunch of games. And he says, "Oh, I also get this other thing. It was for a correspondence course. It came with the cassettes and it's this color computer." And so I got this color computer. It's like, well, I never was into the color computer, but this. Oh, that's right. This is the one that doesn't have the Z80, which I don't really like. It has the 6809. I think I'll hang on to that. Well, since then I've got another CoCo 2 and a CoCo 2 and a CoCo 1 and another CoCo 2 and a Piano Dragon, which, by the way, its stickers were already peeling up when I got it. It's really easy to open it up and mess with it. Strangely enough, after 30 years. And what else did we get? Oh, yeah, I got a couple MPIs. I've got a couple of CoCo SDCs now. So all my CoCo stuff is actually new. So unfortunately, not very exciting. But anyway, yeah, I'm into the CoCo now.
How about you, Grant? How about you? How did you get into the CoCo side of things here?
It was in 1985. I actually had a friend of mine who had an Apple IIc that we'd always play computer games on. So I told my parents for my birthday present I want to get a computer. So at that time we lived in a smaller city in Chillicothe. We had to drive 100 miles to Kansas City, and I remember we went to the I think it was KB Toy stores. Anyways, they had Ataris and all the other computers up there. And for some reason, I remember that it's like, let's go over to Radio Shack. I just want to see what they got. And that's when we got sold on the, it was a CoCo 2 16K standard basic. And I remember we got that, the Black Beauties and Double Back was my first game. So that's how I got involved into it. Then several years later, I got the 64K. And then I think a couple years after that, I got the CoCo 3. But one of my fondest memories, and Steve's not going to like this, was you guys remember Pen Pals in the Rainbow magazine?
Mm.
And I remember I would write to all these pen pals, and you would just get flooded with all these copyrighted games that would be sent to you in the mail. And then, of course, you just trade them among all your pen pal friends. So that was a lot of fun. I remember running out to the mailbox every day, trying out the new games and everything. So I had a lot of pen pals at that time.
And how old would you have been during this time?
I would have been in 6th, 7th grade. So probably 12, 13 years old.
That sounds like mail fraud.
We've had a few illicit confessions in this segment today.
Well, luckily we have statute of limitations, so nobody can come after me now about it.
Yeah.
Did you say statute of limitations?
I guess like
no, it's not me. It's not me. Someone else did it.
we've talked about piracy before, and I think one thing that a few of us have said, like when you're a young kid and you don't have income, it's really hard to save up for a game. So I mean, that's not a sale I think that was lost per se. Now, if you're a teenager, that already had a paper or something like that, that's a different story. You could afford them, but a lot of us, there was no way to make money, and parents were going to spend $40 on a cartridge.
But the other thing on that subject too is, okay, that's true. If you have to have 30 games, that's a lot of money. But the thing is, so you pirate the game saying, I'd never buy these 30 games. But the thing is, you could probably afford to buy one.
Well, some of us
but they
just
never do.
Some of us just had to become programmers and make our own. That's how we did it.
Yeah, that's what I did.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I
had a
had
few program packs.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I had the legit ones. Mum and Dad actually, fortunately, like I was saying earlier on,
I couldn't afford them on a paper, like the little tiny paper that I had. It would take me months to save up for one cartridge, and I had to get joysticks. The more important things.
Yeah, same here. That's why I was really thankful to Mum and Dad. They were supporting both, my own programming side of things, but also, they would, buy us birthday and Christmas presents, computer programs and cartridge packs. Like Stellar Lifeline was one of my favorites back in the day, and I had the cartridge. Cartridge is probably still sitting around here somewhere, but I can't
I
find
have that cartridge. Yeah.
But see, like I'd go to a computer club meeting, and some people, that would pirate, they'd keep it kind of quiet or whatever. But then you have these kids coming up and they're talking back and forth. Ha, look at this game. And I didn't have to pay for it. Ha ha.
By the way, I'm sorry. I just saw in chat that I think it's Nimble was asking the original 16K CoCo 2 had extended basic. I remember mine has standard basic because I ran into some problems.
The very first CoCo 2s came both as extended or standard. That was the melted keyboard. Yeah.
Correct.
It was just the price difference.
Hey guys, can you hear my audio? It's
Yes.
Lodrick. Okay. Cool. I was just, it's funny because talking about Stellar Lifeline, we had that, my dad, I don't know if it was a gift or just because they had it on sale, but he came home with Stellar Lifeline one day, and it's a simple game, but it was so much fun. And listening to all the different stories about, piracy and games and stuff. I remember, getting a magazine of some sort and, reading about games like, Legend of Zelda and like the Contras and all those sort of Nintendo clone type of games. And at the time, I had friends that had like actual Nintendos, and I played the original games. And I didn't have one of my own, so I was like so jealous. And then I would see these ports for the CoCo. I'd be, oh man, I wish so much I could get that game. But it'd be like $50 or $60, and I was just maybe 11, 12 years old. So like for me, like that was like $1 million. No way I could afford that. But my dad occasionally would get stuff like Downland, I think was the first game we got, and I spent countless hours playing that game. Tons of fond memories of that, and he would pick up some stuff here and there. But man, some of those really fancy games, Steve, like Zaxxon, I never got to experience Zaxxon when I was a kid because I just didn't have access to the good stuff, I guess.
Well, even back then, those games, I don't ever remember seeing a CoCo game that was $50 or $60. I think the most expensive one was about $40, and that could have been Zaxxon. I thought Zaxxon was $35.
They marked stuff down, and lots of things were on sale at Radio Shack. That's why.
Yeah, later. But no, I'm talking about the list price.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Here in Canada, a lot of the cartridges were $40.
Yeah, it's just that later. Yeah, okay. The productivity, Tandy felt they could charge more for those.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Like
and I'm probably not remembering accurately too, because when you're 11 or 12, $30 might seem like a lot of money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
Like I know when I got my first my CoCo 1, and the first cartridges I got as presents, I think were Skiing and Project Nebula. I think the first ones I got, those were Christmas presents, because basically at that time I made, I think, 50 cents a week as an allowance, and then I had a weekly paper route that maybe earned me $1 a week or something. So I mean, to buy a single cartridge at $40, I mean, I was saving for half a year for that. So it was like, no, I just
yeah.
And I did feel guilty. Like literally, I did pirate a lot of Steve's stuff in the early to mid '80s because I just couldn't afford them, and I couldn't press mom and dad buy me every game in the catalog. But when I started going to fests, and by the time I was an adult and had jobs and stuff, I actually did buy almost everything from Game Point Software. I saw you at the booth a few times there, so I tried to make up for it as.
Yeah.
As I got older.
Thank you.
CoCo 3 is when I started buying games because I was older and was able to afford it. Arkanoid was one of them.
Yeah. So Nick, what about you? When did you first get your first CoCo?
Which Nick?
Which Nick?
The Nick that's talking.
Oh, okay. Yes, I got it when I was in grade 11. I actually had wanted an MC10, and a friend of mine talked me out of it.
Smart person.
Thank him.
I thought you'd like that, Steve. And I ended up with I got a 16K CoCo 1, which the same friend upgraded to 64K for me. And then I got it traded on a CoCo 2, which I'm not sure how that happened, but I got it traded on a CoCo 2. And that's what I had for the most time. And then I bought a CoCo 3 as well when it came out. And I played a lot of games, and I programmed in BASIC, just little skunk projects, little demos and stuff, just to learn BASIC. And I played around with Logo, and I played around with OS 9, and I played around with different things, and learned how to program. And like I said, played a lot of games. I have Buzzardbait running on my computer right now, which is one of my favorite games I had back in the day. And a lot of memories of playing with my sister, different games, just having fun. So yeah, it was a real part of my teenage years, and waiting for Rainbow Magazine to arrive every month. You don't know the joy of that these days with the internet and all that, but waiting for the magazine to come and then flipping through it, and it was a lot of fun that you don't necessarily understand these days with.
Yeah. Well, did you? Rainbow was in its heyday, and it was like 300 to 350 pages an issue.
Yeah, it was so thick.
And what new games got released this month, or type thing?
Yeah.
Did you spend much time typing in the games?
Oh yes.
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 Yeah, same here. Yeah, absolutely.
That was a lot of fun.
That Rainbow Check and Rainbow Check Plus was lifesavers because I made so many typing mistakes on that chiclet keyboard that was one way to type in like 10 lines. You'd run the Rainbow Check. CRC doesn't match. Okay, I know it's in these 10 lines. I got to find my error rather than type in this massive 32K program and then having it error out.
The worst thing about that though was whenever they had a typo, and then you had to wait till next month for the correction to come out.
See, as you get better at coding yourself, though, eventually you start to pick up on that on your own. You go, oh wait, that doesn't look right, and then you just
yep.
And that whole thing about the Rainbow showing up having to wait a month and all that, and that anticipation. I was trying to, with my Forest of Doom release, I was trying to tap into that old nostalgic feel there, where you actually had to buy a physical book, that had to come. You had to wait for it to arrive in the mail, and that was part of that nostalgic theme I was trying to catch there.
You old-fashioned cruel bastard.
Oh yeah.
Hey, one that I am really anticipating is the latest edition of Rainbow Magazine. We're still waiting for some of us have written articles for it.
Yeah. Yep.
Keep waiting.
Yep.
It's still going to happen. I just had other things I've been working on. Ron Delvo had a bunch of stuff come up, and so he couldn't be the guy putting it all together. So Terry, Stevie and I have been working on trying to learn a desktop publishing software to put it together. So it's still happening. It'll still happen. So.
That's cool. That's cool. Yeah.
Now, Jason Reichert, since I notice you're on the call now and driving in your car, did you join to wax nostalgic?
Oh, I can always do that. I can crack jokes too if you'd like.
No, your jokes suck. Just wax nostalgic instead.
The first CoCo that we got, of course, it was from best recollection, it was Christmas '84, and it was specified that it was a gift for the family. I guess my brother and I couldn't fight over it, but not that helped. But we had a CoCo 2. It was a American CoCo 2 chiclet keyboard, 16K RAM, color basic. must have been some type of bundle because we got 2 Black Beauty joysticks, Bust Out, and we also ended up with a CCR 81 tape recorder to start. And I am happy to say that I rediscovered that CoCo 2 in my parents' garage here. I don't know, a year or two ago, and it does still kind of work. It needs a little work, but I'll get to it eventually. Oh, and we also had a TP10 printer, which I just recently picked a couple of those up again for nostalgia's sake, and I remembered how awful they are for.
Yeah, the TP stood for toilet paper roll, if I remember correctly, didn't it?
Well, I think that's what people called it, but
yeah,
and,
wake the neighbors up with one of them.
Oh my goodness, the paper! At the time the paper was I don't remember pricing it myself, but I know my dad was pretty adamant that the paper was expensive for it, so I wasn't really allowed to print a lot. At the time, my dad did some. He worked in a hospital and a lab in a hospital, and he was like I think manager of one of the departments or whatever. I don't remember the exact title, but he had some things where he had to do statistical entry for work, and he would do that on the CoCo. I believe it was actually with some type of program either my brother coded in BASIC or took something else and reused it. I don't remember what. He may have talked about that before, but Ken Senior used to do like statistics, and then he would do procedures in probably my least favorite ROM pack of all time, color script set. And he would print this stuff out on the TP10 originally. He would glue stick and paste it to regular paper and take it into work and then photocopy it that way.
Get your 2 columns that way.
Right.
Now, he didn't accidentally leave those on the dashboard in the sun, did he?
Oh no, I don't think so. No, they would just be brown then.
They just turned black, yeah. Or brown.
And you couldn't get them wet. That was bad too. They would turn brown. And as far as the stuff I did, I was listening earlier, and Grant, I had 2 pen pals that I for Rainbow. One was in Kentucky, I think like Louisville, and the other fellow I believe was this fellow named James, and he was in New Jersey, I think Newark. And if I remember right, the guy's name in Kentucky, his first name was Charles. So long, but we would trade stuff back and forth. We were pretty young, it was what happened at the time, but a lot of good information back and forth there too. But and eventually we did get the upgrade to extended color basic and 64K, and we had to send that away. And I don't think it was actually that long, but at the time as a kid, it felt like an eternity waiting for the CoCo to come back to the local Radio Shack store so we could go pick it up. And eventually we ended up with an FG502 disk drive, and that was life changing. That's kind of the retro equivalent of going to the CoCo SDC. Life changing, going to floppy disk. And we had a lot of fun with that. And then eventually we ended up with a CoCo 3 and a CM8 and all that fun stuff. But I was even using it into the mid '90s. I was writing papers. So by that point we had gotten like a DMP 133 printer. So at least we had a more normal printer for that time period. And I would write. There was a lot of stuff when I was allowed to type papers for school. I was typing them on my CoCo 3. I was using Simply Better, I believe it was called, and nice 80-column screen word processor. I don't remember who made that, but I think I still have it somewhere around here. Don't remember how to use it, but I did a lot of that with it, and just a lot of games, a lot of other things, and I wrote a few programs. I had a couple of them sold briefly by Farna Systems down in, I think he was in Georgia at the time. And eventually those ended up, he's like, oh, can I just put these in the world of 68 micros? I'm like, yeah, go ahead. I mean, they only sold a couple copies. Like, yeah, go right ahead. You need material for it. That's fine. Go right ahead. and then later wrote one or two more articles for the World of 68 Micros, and I think that was around that. Not too long after that, I got a PC and I got out of the CoCo and just kind of would touch base with it every once in a while, and then about a year and a half or 2 years ago, I got back into it and dug everything out and fixed what had to be fixed, and eventually I'll get back to fixing my original CoCo too.
Yeah. Okay, what we're going to do here is we are going to take a break. We're going to come back with a few last memories. I've got a couple that I haven't shared that I like to. There's also
I've got some
Australian Nick. There's Curtis and like that. So we're going to do a few of those and then we'll wrap up the show. But for now, let's go take a break.
Hello, I'm David Ladd. Thank you for watching CoCoTALK, the world's leading live CoCoTALK show.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's me. It's the original gamer, Stevie Stroh. Gameplay. To get your copy of a Gameplay Goodness Color Computer Gaming DVD today, head on over to 8bit256.com. There you will find several DVDs featuring color computer gameplay videos by the original gamer, Stevie Stroh. So to get your very own copy of a Gameplay Goodness Color Computer Gaming DVD, head on over to the Retro Swag Shop at 8bit256.com and tell them the original gamer, Stevie Stroh, sent you.
It's a Radio Shack Merry Christmas. This year, I needed to give a real family pleaser.
Honey, please help me with this budget.
How about a new game, Dad? Please.
And I found it. Radio Shack's Color Computer 2, on sale for just $99.95. It entertains, educates, manages, it's expandable, and affordable. Now that really pleases me.
The Color Computer 2, sale priced for Christmas, only at Radio Shack.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Tim. Playing Dagger like that idiot from the book. You're watching CoCoTALK.
I'm actually
From Radio Shack, the TRS-80 Model 3. And at $200 off, it's a great value. Select from Radio Shack's huge program library to aid your children's education, plan your personal and household budgets, or to entertain with fast-action games. You can even learn to write programs. The TRS-80 Model 3, on sale for $7.99, only at Radio Shack and Radio Shack Computer Centers, the computer experts. We now return you to CoCoTALK.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. I don't know who wants to go first on the few of the memories here. We also have a little game on segment with Nick Morantes too. It's not going to be very long, but I want to throw that in before the end of the show. And I think we also had David O'Connor. You had the video sent, I think, for your little demo thing too for the synth.
Yep.
How long is that? How long is that one?
The video is only 2 minutes. It's only short, so it's.
Okay.
I've actually got the setup's all behind me there to do it live, and I thought if it didn't work, we'll just play the little video because it probably would do the audio a lot more justice.
Okay. Anyway, before I do my little reminiscing here, did anybody else want to throw in some reminiscing memory stuff
I can
first?
go real quick if you don't mind.
Pardon me?
I said I can go real quick if you don't mind with my quick memory.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, just because we started out. My dad came home with a Timex Sinclair one day, And I was like maybe 8 or 9 years old, and then like, he just sort of dropped it off and went off to do his thing. And next thing he comes home, and I got it hooked up to the TV. I've got a cassette loaded, and he was like, "Wow, I guess this, he kind of is into computers." And that Christmas, we got a CoCo 3, and I just have like a million fond memories of that because we didn't have tons of the greatest software, but we were really fortunate in terms of hardware, because like I started off with a CoCo 3. That was like my first computer ever. And the following Christmas, we got the FD502 disk drive. And then the Christmas after that, we had the monitor, the CM8, and finally even the printer eventually. So I was really spoiled in terms of hardware. So I just had, of course, looking forward to Christmases every year, because what cool thing am I going to get this time? And I know people that struggled with cassette for ages, and here I was with dual density, double-sided disk drive. So I was really lucky, and just lots of memories trying out games, punching in software from Rainbow Magazine when I get my hands on that. I even had my sister sometimes sit there and read me all the data values. She had absolutely no idea what the hell they were, and she's thinking they're all going to be numbers too. And she'd say, "Well, I think this is wrong. It's like a 3 and an F, but F is not a number." And I'd be like, actually, I'm not sure.
My brother and I did that too, actually.
Oh man. God bless my sister, sitting there reading hundreds of
hex codes.
Yep. It's like, okay, now read it back to me. It's like, but yeah, it's just, man, playing games and countless hours and Downland and competing over it with my brother and sister. So that's my quick memory.
Cool. Anybody else?
That's where the CoCo was so educational. I mean, besides learning about the actual CoCo itself, that's where I learned, and probably many of you as well, concepts such as hexadecimal and other skills that have carried on through our lives. So it's a real great thing to have.
If I could add one more thing to my memories, it would be. I don't know about any of you guys, but when I had the CoCo, I knew no one who had a CoCo. And then finally, in I think it was high school or maybe junior high school, I ran into a fella in the computer lab. At the time, our computer lab at school had Commodore 64s, and I ran into this fella named Paul, and he had a CoCo 3. And eventually, I ended up at his house, and at the time, I still had a CoCo 2, and he was. Nice, and then I had to get a CoCo 3, but I don't think we got one until they actually, I think towards the end of that thing, I think it might have actually got on sale. But the one thing that bugged me, he didn't have a monitor. He just had a TV, but he would play Desert Rider in the wrong artifact mode, and I did get him straightened out on that one. And other than that, I was really not around any CoCo users. So the first time I went to PenFest, I'm like, wow, there's all these other people that enjoy this. I had never had that experience before. All these other CoCo people. I may have ran into a person here and there. Oh, I remember the CoCo, but that was quite cool. But I didn't know anybody else at the time until high school.
I had the same issue. Like I had one friend that had an Apple II, and then I had another friend that had a TI 99 4A, another friend that had a PC, and they would, have you checked out the latest whatever game, whatever software? And it'd be like, oh yeah, no, that's just for PC, or no, that's just an Apple game. And I'd be like, oh man. So pretty much it was all BBSs for me that I got to actually get software specifically for the CoCo.
I guess. Go ahead.
My experience was I had a lot of Commodore 64 users. It seemed like, as I said at the time, it seems like everybody and their brother has a Commodore 64.
Yep.
I guess it depends what era you entered to, because in my case, I mean, I got my CoCo in '81, and I'd been playing with it in the store since it first came out. Originally, I wanted a pet, we first had at school, and then when the Apple IIs came to school, and the pets, they were selling them off for $150, and we put in our name to get one because I wanted to get one because we were sharing these between the school board, but they got sold before we got a chance to get them, thankfully. And then the Apple IIs, we took one look at the price and went, well, you're not getting that at home. So then I saved up for the 4K CoCo 1. But this is pre-VIC-20, this is pre-Commodore 64. We didn't have all that. We had Atari 400, 800s, I guess, and the TI-94A a little bit later on. But we had quite a few CoCo owners. I mean, I ended up in Radio Shack. It was the first time I'd ever seen an Artifact color game playing on the screen. It was Astroblast by Mark Data Product, which is a third-party game. And I went to the Radio Shack manager there because I got to know him quite well. His name was Morris. I said, where did this come from? He said, I don't know. Some customer came in and loaded this up because at that time, Radio Shack didn't have any games that looked that good. And I'm going, well, I wonder who that guy was. And then about a week later, I was hanging around the Radio Shack again because I didn't have my CoCo 1 at the time. And a guy named Dick Powell came up. He was an older gentleman in his 40s, and I must have been maybe 12 or 13 at the time. And he said, yeah, you're interested in this CoCo thing. And then he started explaining the 6809. He was a hardware and a software guy. He could both program ML, and he could do his own upgrades and design his own hardware. So he's quite knowledgeable about it. And he said, yeah, there's a few of us getting together here. There's some other people locally, both older and younger, that had CoCos already or were about to get them. And he said, we're thinking about starting a club. So would you be interested in coming down? And a friend of mine, Dwayne Downing, he already had his CoCo. And then I ended up getting mine within about a month of that. And we started attending the meetings. In fact, I pulled out here just as a little side for my story with some of the newsletters we did back in the day. So this is from like 83 till 86 type things. We had a bunch. I have to scan these in and put them up in the archive at some point. And we basically ended it after the CoCo 3 came out. But we started attending the club meetings. And I think our first club meetings had 40 or 50 people. And I mean, we weren't that big of a city, but this is when the CoCo was one of the only affordable color computers you could get that actually had a decent basic language on it. And this, like I said, is pre-VIC-20, et cetera. So that would be my first memories of meeting the first other CoCo owner, meeting the first club meeting where we had like quite a few people there all sharing knowledge. At that time, there wasn't even that much to pirate yet, to be honest. I mean, there was some piracy going on, but it was more to share the knowledge. People were showing, here's how you upgrade a CoCo. Here's how you install extended basic. Here's how you build your own joystick using arcade parts. You know, all kinds of fancy things like that. And there's a mixture of the young kids like me and then the older people in their 40s that, you know, grew up with PDPs and that kind of stuff. And it was quite a fascinating cross-section of people. A lot of really personality-driven people too. Like there are a lot of eccentrics in this group, let's put it that way. A lot of fun.
Nothing's changed.
Yeah, much. I think we're more well-groomed now than back then. I will say that. But
yeah, we're a lot more wise.
Yeah.
Wise eccentrics.
My entire
eccentric.
Yeah. My entire career was based on the CoCo because we ended up getting a CoCo 3 at work when the PDP died for the second time, and it was costing like $2,000 to repair it every time. So we ended up replacing it with the CoCo 3 with OS9, and then built it into probably what was the biggest CoCo 3 system ever made, with 8 terminals and 3 parallel port printers and 2 hard drives and a meg of RAM and a 6309. That's actually where Nitrous 9 was developed, was for that originally. But I do have a couple of pictures I wanted to share too that are kind of related to this. So is screen sharing enabled there, Mark? Or? Okay, let me find my right. You guys can see that?
Yep.
So this would have been probably early 82 because in summer of 81 is when I got my 4K CoCo. And at that time, I had no cassette, no joysticks. It was just 4K CoCo. So I'd type in a listing, I'd write it down in 55 sheets of paper, and I'd leave it on for 2 weeks straight so I could play that game until I got bored with it, and then I'd go on to the next one because I didn't have anything to save it on. That Christmas, my mom and dad got me the cassette recorder and 2 black joysticks. So that's at this era that I would have had. This is pre-disk drive. I might have had extended basic by the time this photo was taken. So I would have been in grade 9, maybe 12, 13, like some other people were mentioning before.
Well, you had a fancy setup there because your card table actually had a cloth over it. most of us didn't have that luxury.
My mom insisted on that because I was scratching the table up, shifting all the cassette recorder and the joysticks around. I'll be scratching the finish. So there's a cloth in there. And you can't see it in the frame there, but off the right where I'm staring at was one of those big wood grain case TVs, like a 30-inch or something like that, on legs on the floor.
Yeah.
But yeah,
how many of us had a card table set up for our CoCos?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was almost a prerequisite, I think, isn't it?
And then this is a typical pose for me too. I'm so tied into what I'm doing in the CoCo, I'm oblivious to the outside world. So I had no idea this picture was even getting taken. I had no idea there was anybody beside me at the time.
Yep. Yeah.
So, yeah.
I totally relate to that.
And then this isn't the heyday of the CoCo, and I don't know how well it'll show up here, but this was at the second print shop I worked at. The CoCo was originally set up at the first one, Mackenzie Ray Tickets. We set it up in 89, 90. And it gradually expanded. Then Mercury Graphics bought them out in October of 92. And then the CoCo ran the line printers and even some of the lasers up until 2000. Year did we finally retire? 3 or 4 or something like that? So this is one of the back things. You can see through the window a couple of the old line printers there. These are the ones that actually print literally an entire line with one big hammer bank and just slam it onto the paper in one shot. So they printed 300 lines per minute. And we had the CoCo driving 3 of those simultaneously using OS9. You can kind of see the CoCo behind the chair there, the multi-pack. It's completely full. Every slot's full. That's how we got the 8 serial ports and the 3 parallel ports and a real-time clock and the hard drive controller and a no-halt floppy and blah, 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 blah. You can see the hard drive off to the left. We had a CM8. And then on the far left, you can see an ADM22 terminal, which is one of the 8 terminals we had hooked up to it. Because we had extra staff, they had to watch the printers. We could literally do it on the CoCo, but then you had to keep hitting the clear key to go between windows and say, where's this printer leaving off? How far is it along in this job type thing? So we usually had Bill or me, Bill Noble, who's also on here, would do most of our stuff on the CoCo, and we would watch 2 of the printers maybe, because we had 3 printers running simultaneously. And actually sometimes we had 4 or 5 if we threw them onto the serial port printers. But the other staff there wasn't used to this whole multitasking thing, so they would go and each one would get a terminal, and they would watch the printer off their terminal and just run basic 9 programs that we had set up for them. Just on a per terminal per printer basis. So you had this all, but it was all running off the CoCo. And at Mackenzie Ray, we actually had the sales staff had their terminals set up. That was all linked in the CoCo. They could look up dockets and all kinds of stuff. And we had multi-user chats. If they wanted a little thing where they didn't want to leave their office because they were expecting a call, they could actually do text chats with up to like all 8 of us at once, plus Bill and me on as the 9th and 10th on the CoCo itself. It was a pretty cool system. I know Lonnie Falk, we talked to him about it at the 1990 Rainbow Fest, and he wanted us to do an article. And Bill and I had started writing one. We had done some filming, took some pictures, and then I had to move to a different apartment, and some stuff got lost, so it never got published. I mean, I have no idea what happened to the tapes. Unfortunately, it was pretty cool because we were panning the camera from watching you running stuff on OS9, switching through windows, walking to the next room. You could see the 3 printers we just showed you the programs running for, all running simultaneously. And then get a terminal and something. We even threw some games on the terminals for people to use if they were near the end of the day and didn't have anything to do. They could play some sort of torpedo attack game or skiing game or some of these simple things we did for the terminals. So, but literally it started my career because I when the PDP first died, we were delayed for a week waiting for parts to come in. The second time it died, we got told, well, that part's rare, so it's going to take 2 weeks to get it. And we were in the middle of rush season where we have very tight deadlines. And my bosses were freaking out, like, what are we going to do here? We can't print anything. Like, we can't even get our jobs finished. And I said, well, I've got this computer at home. And at that time I had, I think, a Disto supercontroller 2 with a 3-in-1 board. So I had a real parallel port and I had a serial to parallel interface PBH one as well. So I could drive 2 printers simultaneously off the CoCo already. And I had fiddled with it with OS9 at home because we had 4 computer geeks living in the same house. We had 6 computers and 6 phone lines, and all of us ran BBSs and stuff. So I had a lot of hardware to test this out on. I said, I think this can handle it. And we brought it in with basic 9 and the no-halt floppy controller, so I could read the data files off the floppy without pausing the printers all the time and stuff. We actually got both printers running. And then they saw, what does one of these systems cost? And it was like, at that time, you can get a CoCo 3 with 512K, a monitor, a Birkenberg hard drive type thing for maybe $1,000 total. And they're going, well, that's like half the cost of this one board we keep having to replace on the PDP. So they said they gave us the budget to go get it. And then we spiced it up a bit. We added 1 meg upgrades, and we added the eliminator from Frank Hogg to add a bunch of ports. And Bill custom designed a couple of cards to give us some extra ports as we grew. But literally, the CoCo ran the entire print division for that company, or the 2 companies, from late '89 right through till 2000. 1, 2, 3, somewhere around there. We gradually retired. The lasers were getting faster and faster, and the CoCo couldn't quite keep up, but we still were doing some line printer stuff, and the CoCo definitely kept up with that just fine. So literally a 15-year career on a CoCo.
How loud were the line printers? It would have been pretty loud doing
Very.
it.
That's why they're in that separate room. You can see the 2 panes of glass there.
Yeah,
because it was a sound isolated room, because they were incredibly loud, and there was 3 of them. We had a couple 300 line per minute ones. We had a 600 line per minute one, and we had 1200 line per minute one.
I find it incredible that a CoCo 3 with some additional hardware replaced a PDP-11.
Yep.
I was just like,
cheaper, and it was much easier to add on to. Bill and I, because of the multitasking and stuff, we would be programming, the next job. We'd be programming a module for Nitrous 9 in another window, and we'd be, dumping out some other job that just came in to figure out what we needed to do. And if, we were crowding the keyboard too much there, then one of us would just hop over to a terminal and do it over there. Sometimes we'd have 2 terminals, side by side, and I'd be checking one program on one, and I'd be programming something else based on the other, while Bill's doing 3 or 4 things on the CoCo itself. So it was a really nice environment to grow into. And back at this time, we're talking like Windows 3, 3.1, which couldn't even format a floppy at the same time that you were doing anything. So I was formatting like literally 70, 80, 3.5-inch floppies to do backups with, while we're running all these printers simultaneously and not even really slowing it down. So it was a beautiful system. I've had pieces of it still here. I actually brought the Eliminator card to CoCo Fest there a few years back to show people what
What's the box next to the filing cabinet? Is that a drive of some kind?
A drive, probably. External hard drive, probably.
The white one, yeah, that's the 40 meg Seagate, the 80 meg Seagate. It was 2 hard drives in the same case.
And that's connected to the CoCo?
Yep.
That's amazing.
And right beside that, you can see the very top, we had a dual floppy. It was a 360K 5.25 inch and a 720K 3.5, and those are both plugged into the Eliminator card from Frank Hogg, because that card actually drove up to 3 hard drives and 4 floppies, all in no halt simultaneously.
Huh. Wow. It's impressive.
Pretty epic.
Anyway, that was my little share.
Yeah, your
Can I jump in
experience
with
is.
another memory, guys?
I was going to say your experience, Curtis, is definitely different than most of the color computer users out there. I mean, I have to admit my experience is a little different, because I was reverse engineering and developing the stuff. But most people, they were a kid, they got the machine, and they just banged in those rainbow magazines.
Yeah, in the CoCo 1 and 2 days, that is what I was doing. Like that first picture that I showed you in 81, that's what I was doing. I mean, I couldn't afford games, so I typed in some games from the very first big, thick, color basic manual, and I learned to program. And I wrote probably a dozen low-res 4K games, which unfortunately the listings that I'd written down, I've lost all but one of them. So I only have left.
Yeah, I still remember occasionally when I'd buy a CoCo for processing like that, there would be a rainbow magazine card in there. That was a good thing for Frank Hogg. He was able to promote his magazine directly from Radio Shack.
Yeah. Well, I remember Frank wrote the infamous article in Color Computer News, 64K for free, which is what early discussion with Richard, et cetera, about the 32 64K chips. They were half bad. And then they discovered that Tandy had basically switched over to using just good ones, because it was too much of a pain in the ass to figure out which ones he had. And then when OS9 was coming out, so he actually published the article. He had to snip this capacitor here, do some certain things, and then you get this instant 32K extra for free. And he published a little test program to copy the basic ROMs into RAM, and then you could do all kinds of fancy stuff. So,
right.
I'm pretty sure it might have been that article that I read when I was doing my. Oh, maybe it wasn't. Maybe that was later. But I remember that article. I remember reading it.
Now, did we ever get Grant to talk about his stuff?
Yeah, he talked about his CoCo 2
good. I want to make sure. So I think that pretty much catches everybody on the panel. Except for...
Oh, wait, we got Stevie there and Rob Inman yet, I think, still.
Okay.
Yeah,
Stevie?
I can go real... Oh, sorry.
Or Curtis, who did you say?
Well, let's do Rob first, because Rob hasn't said anything lately, and we'll do Stevie right after that.
All right.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of anecdotes, so I'll be quick. But I was very, very young when I got my first color computer, so I think I had the TRS-80 Color Computer 2 16K, and I'm pretty sure it had extended color basic. I wasn't aware it was sold without extended color basic. But then later upgraded to a 64K Color Computer 2, I think primarily to play Ghana Buana. and then Color Computer 3, and then 512K to play the King's Quest games with, and then I got a 20 meg hard drive to do stuff with OS 9. So most of the stuff pretty much everything I bought was from Radio Shack. I think even Telewriter 64 I got from Radio Shack, and didn't know anybody with the CoCo. Rainbow was my portal to the outside world, and couldn't afford any of the Contras or the Come Guide to Be Ninja or Warrior King or any of these fancy other games, Iron Forest. So all that stuff I'm discovering now, and getting to play all those games I couldn't afford. Never had any free games or pen pals giving me copyrighted games. I paid for all of my Steve Bjork games. Thank you very much. Although they probably were on sale when I did. So that's really it. I mean, my big thing was convincing my parents to buy me OS 9 because that's not something easy to explain, and it was probably not on sale. And it comes in that giant binder, right? This
1,000-page manual.
Yeah, this enormous manual, and you've got to, but I sat there and went through it and learned at least a lot about operating system and how an operating system works, if not, actually being able to program. And I typed in all the programs from the Rainbow. I saved the extra, I don't know, it was extra $10 a month or $5, I don't know what it was for getting a Rainbow on cassette or disc, but I saved that money and typed everything in by hand, every single program. So probably that's why I ended up getting glasses, I think by 89. But I was pretty young. I think I was only 6 years old when I got my first the Color Computer 2. So that's really my story.
Cool. And you definitely got further into OS 9 than Nick Marentes did. I think he got up to page 3 in the manual and he stopped there.
Glad you said that about OS 9, because I was just saying in the chat room that OS 9 also taught a lot of really useful concepts with like multitasking and file redirection, and when I went to Unix in university, I already had a bit of a step up because I already knew some of the concepts, and it was like a lot of stuff translated.
I would have done even better if I could have afforded, the OS 9 programs and games, and anything for OS 9 was also really expensive. So, if it didn't come out from Tandy and just with OS 9, it was what Tandy released on OS 9, you could put on your hard drive and then you could launch everything. So that was useful. But if you wanted to really, buy any specialized program for OS 9, it was very expensive. And so now I'm actually going through, again, getting to go through the OS 9 stuff without having to spend hundreds of dollars on the software, of course. So it's that's why I've been so kind of jazzed up about OS 9, and of course everything going on with ease of use, which we have Nick Marentes to thank us for. Let's not forget.
That trash can.
Yeah.
Well, before we go to Nick, I'd like to just give you a fond memory that I have about as going through the technology of the CoCo. When you first got the CoCo with Color Basic, it was a nightmare typing in programs, because if you had a long line, you messed up, you typed that freaking long line in again, and again, and again. So when you got extended basic and you could do edit a line. Matter of fact, I got so frustrated with it, I wrote the screen editor control system that Datasoft actually sold, which was a screen editor for regular Color Basic, and also even gave you high-res graphics. And I think we sold about 300 of those. So there's other people that liked it too, but you actually edited on the screen. And then they finally came out with the line editor, and I'm going, this is backwards. It's not a screen editor. It's designed for a terminal. But you had it, you used it. And of course, the other technology that you had with the CoCo was saving to tape. How many people would save their program to tape, then grab a second tape and save that program, and maybe even go to a third tape and save the program, because
I
you
did
never
too.
knew
I
with the
never did
quality of tape how well it was going to record.
Yeah. Or you type poke. You forgot to type in poke 65494,
Yeah,
0
slow it
before you
back down
save
and
the
you save
tape.
it at high speed and wouldn't work.
Yep.
Yep.
Or how about this one? Every new tape, you always made sure you fast forward and rewind it, so you stretched the tape so it would record better.
And also don't forget, if you had those non-computer tapes, just regular cassettes and had the stupid leader on there, so you rewind it, you get the forward and fast, you'd start saving over top plastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, Vance. So, you know, just think about all these things we're talking about. And then there's this newfangled thing called a floppy disk drive.
$800 in Canada when it first came out.
You know, 500 in the US, as I recall. And if you want a second drive, it was another $400. And
600 here, yeah.
but the thing is, with most cases, you put the disk in and you save the file. When you pulled the disk out and put it back in later, it would actually load.
Most of the
Unlike
time.
cassette. But and then of course, well, floppies are starting to get expensive. So we started finding some ways that we could flip the single side floppy so you could write to it by punching.
Yeah, punching in the hole, the index hole and the write protect hole.
Yeah. So well, these are part of the joys I remember of early day of computing, is all the things that you would deal with, because stuff was either so slow, so expensive, so unreliable. And now we take all this for granted.
Yeah. Now we just have to worry about things like regedit.
Yeah.
Well, now we can
buying stuff secondhand.
Yeah.
Well, now we can.
Now we can. The peripheral I bought was brand new. Everything
Okay.
was secondhand.
Now we're starting to run out of time here, so I do want to go to Nick. Have
Before
him
we
give
go to Nick, though, Stevie's been trying to get in here with something too. I want to let him.
Okay, Stevie.
Pop in quick.
Well, he's not on.
Oh, he was.
He will be.
You still there, Stevie? Because I know you were trying to get in there.
Well, there he's
Yeah,
unmuted now.
just go ahead. Go ahead. For the sake of saving time, go ahead and move on to Nick.
Okay. All right, Nick, why don't you give us
That's all right.
a brief thing of your memories, and then we're going to go to your segment.
Oh, me? Have we got time? I mean, I don't mind if we leave it for next week.
Well, no. We want to at least get your memories in.
Okay, well, my memories. Well, I guess to try and make my story a bit different to everyone else's, because a lot of the story is very similar to everyone else. But for me, I started on a TRS-80 Model 1 back in 1980. And actually, probably is more interesting if I talk about before I got my TRS-80 Model 1. I was the typical, TRS-80 Tandy store hobbit. After school, I'd be there until the store closed, and I'll be trying to learning to use the TRS-80 Model 1 Level 1 4K computer. Now, this is, of course, I knew nothing about computers, so I learned how to program in BASIC, and I became very good at it, and that's where I learned how to do multi-statement lines and how to do other little tricks just to get the most out of Level 1 4K BASIC. And I guess what's interesting is how I then switched across to learning assembly language, because I was such a good basic programmer. I think by then the store had upgraded to the Level 2 Model 1 as well, and I was writing games in BASIC at the computer store. I'd write it on paper at school, and then after school I'd go to the Tandy store and I'd type in the program, save it to a cassette there, and that's how I used it before I actually bought my own Model 1. But I was a really good basic programmer, and I was writing very dense and optimized, I guess, basic programs. I was the king. And until this little kid come along, who also was a bit of a, computer learning computers as well. He come in one day and he loaded up the Z-Bug. Remember the Z-Bug assembler, monitor rather? Yeah, he loaded that up on the machine, and started typing all these little numbers and stuff. And I thought, what the hell is he doing? I reckon he doesn't know what he's doing. Anyway, one of the big benchmarks for BASIC was how fast you can white out a screen. And, you know, you do set, reset, and paint the screen. It took a couple of minutes to do that. You know, back then I learned how to do strings and how to white the screen out from BASIC. So I was the king. You know, I wrote the fastest screen whiteout program. So this kid came along and he's got ZBug loaded. He's typing all these numbers, which made no sense to me. I thought, what the hell is he doing? Anyway, finished typing and then was ready to press enter, presses enter, boom, the screen is just instantly white. He obviously wrote a machine language program that just painted the screen white. And that was it. I was blown away. I was completely shot out of the water by how fast it was. And it was from that day onwards, I thought, well, screw BASIC. I know where I know where the future was, and I just had to learn machine language. And on the Model 1, I wrote about 6 commercial grade programs, of which I think 2 of them were BASIC with hybrid, and the rest were machine language games. And that took me till around 1984. So when I finally got my color computer, it was well past the CoCo 1. I think the CoCo 2 was just about to come out by 1984. So I missed out on all those early CoCo years because I was too busy with the TRS-80 Model 1. So when I finally got to the color computer 2, I almost didn't go to it. I wasn't really happy with the CoCo 2. I wanted something better. And I was looking at the Commodore 64s and all that, but I was a Tandy man and I ended up going to a CoCo. So I got a CoCo and I started programming on that. And that eventuated later to a CoCo 3, and I'm still here. And the rest is history. Well, all of it is history. But yeah, I all started with a TRS-80 Model 1 back in 1980.
Cool.
That's it in a nutshell. I don't know if Steve's available. You can have his little say.
Where are we? Where's our Stevie gone?
I think he's gone.
Yeah, I think Steve's gone.
Yeah.
Okay.
Fell asleep.
Okay.
Yeah.
His battery probably died on his phone.
Yeah.
Do we have a game on?
Well, if for that we could do the quick game on, if we've got time. We're going on close to 3 hours now.
Yeah, I do not want to go over 3 hours. How long do you think you need for your segment?
I can do it really quick. I just got some pictures to show, and I'll just explain it, and I'll keep it to 5-10 minutes at the most.
Okay, let's do that.
Okay, that's the music. Let me see if I can. Let me see if I can get the screen shared so I can at least show. I think someone's got the screen still. Okay. Share. Oh, that's not coming up. Here we are. Let's see. I've got to find that and share. Now there's no sound. So is that coming up for you?
Yes, it is.
And there's a mouse pointer on the screen?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, now as another side note, a side project from my Gunstar, I keep having these side projects because it's a way of keeping myself motivated. Just when things are getting tough, I just go do something else and I come back. So there's an idea I had to try and create something on the CoCo 1 and 2, which is designed for doing adventure games, Sands of Egypt style, whereby you have the picture in the top of the screen and your text parser at the bottom. like Sands of Egypt. But I wanted something that I didn't want to so much write the adventure because I'm working on another project, but I thought as a tool for other people to use so they can write their own programs in BASIC to do a similar thing. But I had this idea of how do we create something that looks a bit better or different on a CoCo 1 and 2. I mean, the CoCo 1 and 2, we've got the SG4 graphics, 8 colors. It's got its, you know, color limitations and all that. But then I thought, what happens if we could flash between 2 pages so that the colors can be mixed, similar to what John Kowalski did on the high color, where he fluctuates between 2 colors sometimes to get a few more things. So I thought I'd write a little basic editor to create these 2-page images, and then there's a machine code subroutine which links into BASIC and does the page flashing between the 2 pages in the background of BASIC. So that way you could have a BASIC program, but this machine code is displaying a picture on your screen, which is a merged color picture that you previously created with, say, this editor. So this is a screenshot. The reason I'm shooting it is because these pictures are flashing between 2 pages, there is a degree of flicker. Depending on the 2 colors that are being mixed together on the screen, if they're high, the contrast of the 2 colors is quite high, quite different, it tends to flicker a bit more. So, and that flickering over Zoom or over the internet, it doesn't come across very well and you can't really see it. So I took some photos or screenshots of my real CoCo, and this is the startup screen to my editor. Now it's a blank picture up there at the moment, which allows me to edit 2 pictures of that size you see in the top, the blue area. And on the screen here, on the left side, depending on where your cursor is, it shows you what byte is on one screen, and that's signified by the arrow, or you can move it across and see the other byte on the second screen in the same location. Now, in this case, it's just blue on each screen, so it's flashing it up so you just see a blue screen. You change those bytes by typing in the pixels in the center square using the keyboard, the QAWS, in the position where those pixels normally would appear, and you choose the color with pressing the numbers to choose a color. Once you've got the block you want, and you've selected which of the 2 pages you want to throw it into, you then just dump it using a joystick. This is all joystick driven on the cursor keys. You press the fire button on the joystick and it pokes the value that's highlighted, whatever value you've created in the middle, it'll poke it across to that screen and it appears straight away. The machine code routine will display it. Now, what sort of quality can we expect? Well, here's one I created earlier. So on the second screen, I made a little title page for the game. So, and I've called the program an SG4 editor, and I've called it an adventure screen maker. And straight off, you can see, well, on this, it's a bit blurry on this picture, but there's yellow text. This is normal yellow VDG text on a red background. And the top one is sort of a not quite white. It's got a bit of a cyan, light cyan on a blue background. That's text. That's not graphics or anything. That's text just like you see on the bottom of the screen, but we're getting a mixture of colors. And even in the border, you are seeing, you know, colors which are sitting next to each other, which normally you can't. You couldn't do, and actually you can't even do those colors. You're not quite seeing the full resolution of the colors with these screenshots I've taken, but you do get, well, logically you could create from the 8 colors that the CoCo 2 does, potentially 64 colors. Now that's not totally right, because some of the color combinations flicker so badly you can't use them. But out of all those 64 combinations, you get about 20, maybe 30, which are usable. And they're very unique sort of colors to what the CoCo 2 normally does. So to just show what this potentially could be used for as an adventure game, my next screen, I decided to do a bit of a mock-up, and I've created, just a blue sky with I don't know what color you call that, but it's not quite one of the standard colors. A tree there where straight off you see there's no black dots, squares next to some of those pixels where you normally can't have more than two, a foreground and a background color, and I can potentially have up to about 3, maybe 4 colors in a byte. So anyway, I've used that to try detail the tree there. There's 2 layers of red there, and that's happening in machine code. That's always showing up. Your basic program is still running. I can actually hit break at this point and list the program, and the program would list. But when you run the program, the machine code takes over and it runs in the background, oblivious to the basics. So you write your adventure game in BASIC, and your pictures, which eventually when I write the second part of this program, you can have up to almost 90 pictures stored in 2 color pages of pictures stored in memory, sitting underneath the 32K of ROM space. So all your pictures on a 64K CoCo 1 and 2 or 3 or Dragon will sit stored under the ROM. So you still have all your basic space available for your basic program. And the machine code routine, all you have to do is a couple of little pokes to tell it which picture you want displayed, and it would fetch the background and throw it up on the screen while your basic program continues doing whatever it's meant to do. So you just, you have the adventure game in there. Another picture I've done is another one here that shows all these different color combinations you can do with the text. So that's by mixing text characters with graphic characters, and you can see straight off, you're getting color combinations of text on the standard 32 column screen, which you don't normally get on a VDG. The yellow text on red background, and you can see all the colors there. It's quite a varied outline. And then what happens when you mix 2 text characters together? And that's what the second line does. You can actually merge characters together to create new ones. So it's almost like, well, it's not programmable characters, but it has that programmable character look. And that's because it's flashing 2 screens at 60 hertz or 60 fields per second. One more thing, I decided to do a mock-up of a Space Invaders game using the combination of text characters. And as you can see, like in the top row there, he looks like an actual alien character. And that's actually made from the letter V and the letter X together, being superimposed over each other, being flashed. And you can see it looks quite good. You can even see the 2 eyes on the alien, which are slightly brighter green. A few others there. And on the side, you can see the color, the displays where it says score, and there's a demo score there, are in red background and blue background. You don't get that. The laser base, it's just done with normal blocks, but I put 2 equal signs either side to give it just a bit more detail. So that's the idea of this program, where you can create these pictures, store them in, it has a menu. Actually, if I go to the next screen, there's a menu system whereby you can load various banks of pictures, of which I've got 8 banks, and each bank holds 12 pictures, and they can all be loaded, or will be when I get to that point, loaded underneath the ROM. So you've got available 12 times 8 pictures of the color mixed pages. that your basic program can just bring up at any time just by doing a poke to tell it which one you want up there, and the background machine language will display it while your basic program just does whatever it's meant to do. You know, interpret your command line down in the bottom part of the screen. So there's that, and there's another stage as well which allows overlays. So you can actually define overlays. So by overlays, what I mean is, what you're going to have is you're going to have your background image, say, for example, this image here in your adventure game. That'll be a standard background. And what if you you come up to a character, say, in the adventure game, and you talk to him or whatever, or even if it's an object in the screen, like a chair, for example. Well, you would have the chair graphic stored elsewhere as an object, or a person, their face, stored as an object. And then your basic program can just say, give me that background, and it would bring up that background. But I also want you to put object numbers 5 and 10 printed at that position, and it would then overlay the chair or a person's face over there. And your basic program would then continue going while the image is being displayed, or with your overlays or whatever you design. And that's basically it. It's designed for people to be able to program their own adventure games in BASIC, but have this program creating these color graphics in the top part of the screen, which utilizes this flashing between two pages to get a few more colors or even a few more interesting characters. So that's my SG4 editor project, which is sidelined me from my Gunstar only for a short time, but
So are you going to make this available for people, or what's the plan?
Yeah. Well, actually, at this point, Erico, I don't know if you know of Erico on the Facebook group, who's been playing with a lot of SG4 graphics. I'm actually designing it for him because Erico actually does have ideas for an adventure game. He's been wanting to do an adventure game. And I've spoken to Erico and I've told him about this, and I've sent him a copy of this program so he can start learning to use it, so he can create pictures. So Erico is going to try put together an adventure game with these images he'll create with this program. But yeah, the end goal is that it becomes a general tool for other people to use. But okay. I'll release it officially to everyone once I get the second stage of this program. This is currently only the graphics editor part of it. The other part's going to be the actual code that's meant to be for the game itself.
Yay.
So that's stage 2, which I'll start that pretty soon in my next distraction from my Gunstar. But at this stage, yeah, Erico's the one who's trying to use it. It's a little bit awkward to use because you can't just access the pixels as if they're just a pixel, because you've got to think in terms of two screens have to come together, mix the colors, mix the characters to do that. So it's not quite obvious as to how to draw something, but you get used to the concept that, you know, one side has as the first byte that is overlaid by the next byte. And then when they're mixed together, you get certain colors or certain patterns come up. So it's a little bit awkward, but you persevere, you can do it. I do also support the option to choose the upper text color set as well, the orange rather than the black. Right. The black and green rather. You can use the black and amber or orange text set as well. Because that gives you a few extra colors as well. But that's my project, the SG4 editor.
Well, thank you, Nick. We're definitely running out of time here.
Yep, and I think we've done straight on to 3 hours.
Yep.
Still got one more thing to go, though.
We do? Okay.
Yep.
What?
One more.
Oh, yes, I will. Hang on. Let me get back to the Blah, blah, blah. I'll just close this. And has that stopped?
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Yep. Yep. So we got one more thing, have we?
Yep. Let's make an hour long and we go for 4 hours now.
Oh.
Yeah.
No, we got to end the show very quickly here, folks. So
Yeah, we got to pay Steve double time if we go over.
Yep. Oh, well, so be it.
okay.
Yeah, a little lead up that I've been working on for months and promising every week, and finally got it all done and spent a whole week preparing this and getting everything together with this demo. So
How long is the demo?
It's only a couple of minutes. It's a little video that I put together. So
we can do 2 minutes.
Yeah, cool. You got that ready? Oh yeah, cool.
Okay, well I'm going to demonstrate right here. I've got this board here from Second Sound.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
Does MIDI outputs, control voltage outputs, gate outputs, and it's got its own oscillator built in, and it converts an input signal, which can be any audio signal, any monophonic, meaning one note at a time audio signal, and it'll convert it into MIDI notes, into pitch and control voltage for controlling the analog synthesizer. I've got MIDI plugged into the System 8 up here. I've got the pitch and control voltage plugged into that, and both of them linked together. And I've got my faithful old Tandy TRS-80 Color Computer 1, which I've had since brand new in the early 80s. And I've taken a bit of the Radio Shack demo program section in the middle, which plays some music. Just uses the play command. I don't know if you'll be able to see this list. It's just basically a list of when it stops. Okay, why has it loaded that? Let's see what happens when I run it. There we go. Press break just to show that it is that if I type in play C, D, E, F, G, A, B, for example, let's just put right, let's just do that. 7 notes of the scale. One more note. Okay, so that's just a little quick demo of this wonderful evaluation kit from Brian from Second Sound. Yeah, that's the start of many experiments to come.
Very good.
Oh, thank you for allowing that little end bit at the end there.
Yeah,
that's impressive.
Thank you.
Yeah, it sounds a lot better than the standard audio out on the
command,
CoCo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do it.
This concludes another episode of CoCoTALK, the world's leading live talk show featuring the Tandy Color Computer. For all things CoCoTALK, visit us on the web at CoCoTalk.live. We'd love to hear from you. Send feedback, suggestions, even segments via email to CoCoTalk@CoCoTalk.live.
CoCoTALK is rocking the 8-bit world, keeping the Tandy flame alive. We may be mocked, but we'll never stop, 'cause CoCoTALK is rocking the 8-bit world.
Consider supporting the show with the purchase of merchandise from our retro swag shop at 8bit256.com. If you'd like to become a patron of the show, click the Patreon link at CoCoTalk.live. CoCoTALK would not exist without the community and its cast and crew and contributors.
CoCoTALK is rocking the 8-bit world, keeping the Tandy flame alive. We may be mocked, but we'll never stop, 'cause CoCoTALK is rocking the 8-bit world.
Thanks go to Curtis Boyle, David Ladd, Mark Overholzer, Grant Leedy, Bruce Moore, Nick Marentes, Ron Delvaux, Rick Adams, Jason Reichert, Richard Lorbieski, Jim Brain, Tom C., Rob Inman, Mark Bosley, Brian Joyce, Ken Reichert, David O'Connor, Brian Weasler, Terry Steggy, John Strong, and many more, especially Steve Bjork for his production suggestions. Please help support the CoCo community by visiting some of its contributors. The CoCo Crew podcast at CoCoCrew.org. Glenside Color Computer Club host of CoCo Fest at GlensideCCC.com. Retro Innovations at Go4Retro.com. Tandy Assembly at TandyAssembly.com. Voice on Technologies at BOYSONTech.com. Get your own switcheroo and wallaby cable at CoCoMan.biz. Cloud9 Technologies at Cloud9Tech.com. The CoCoTALK theme song is copyright 2008 by D. Bruce Moore and Greg Sheeler. Mixed, mastered, and produced by D. Bruce Moore.
Well, that is our show. But if you can't get enough of CoCoTALK on these Saturdays, stop by our CoCoTALK channel on Discord. If somebody could post a link in the chat, that would be great. But you'll see us hanging out there. We do, of course, text chats, but more importantly, we do audio chats usually in the evenings on the, let's see, America time. And so if you can't get enough of us now, and I don't know how it is, you can talk to us on Discord.
You can also text chat to us if you have questions or suggestions for the show. There's some channels devoted to suggestions. There's also just ones on general topics on programming the CoCo and doing hardware and stuff like that too. You can feel free to ask. Even if you're in a completely different time zone, you can leave a text message and some of us will respond.
Yeah, we regularly go through and look at the messages, figure out which ones we want to respond to. There's a lot of them sometimes. But no, and then we do chit chats in the evening, usually.
I ask a lot of questions there. So I appreciate you guys helping me out.
Oh, don't we know it? No, just kidding.
Hey, truth.
I mean, we were just helping Bruce understand how you should handle the MMU registers on a CoCo 3. Treat them as write-only. Then you won't have problems.
Yeah, that's the weird thing. It's like so weird how some of them you can read from, but some of them you just can't trust.
Well, the original gimmies, A, B, and C, they were write-only. Then they tried to make it read-only on the D version, which was the first one shipped, and it kind of worked. But if you also remember, the D version had lots of sparkles on the screen. Well, when you were accessing the MMU registers, it also accessed the palette registers and caused sparkles. And then they supposedly got it right on the final version, but Tandy never trusted, so their specs was write-only.
Because it always works.
Yep.
Because otherwise you couldn't trust them because there's a lot of atoms involved, and atoms make up everything.
Right. So, anyways, these are types of discussions. That's on the techie side, and then there's lots of them that aren't. But if you want to talk about the CoCo and some of your interests, you might be able to find a channel and other folks that share your interests too.
Definitely.
Thanks a lot for letting me chat with you guys, man. It's a lot of fun.
Glad to have you.
And with that, why don't we press the button and really end the show?
See you guys.
See you next week, everybody.
Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.